Mine works. Mine works.
Mine works.
Testing 1, 2, testing, mine's fine.
You two both work?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, this testing 1, 2, this is fine.
Clown car. Oh, there we go.
Oh, that's gonna be a nightmare. Okay. Doesn't keep my hands free. That's okay.
If we use, there's too many people in here, it can pick up.
Yeah. Okay.
So they're good for closed sessions.
What do I do to shut, just press it to shut it off in between?
Or you hand it, because these guys will need it when they want to speak too, right?
Yeah. But if there's somebody else speaking in the room, should I have it shut off?
I think you'll be okay to leave it on, but have to turn it on and off.
It won't get too noisy if I put it down.
Don't be looking. It takes the office where you're gonna need to like make sure you're into the
Okay.
top.
Okay. Everybody from Todd over doesn't work.
Yep.
Then I only have share this way.
Nope.
Are we good? Are we just gonna start like this? Or are we gonna keep trying? What's that? Okay. So we'll just start? Okay. You ready? Okay, good evening, everyone. We're going to call tonight's meeting to order, and I'd like to begin with an approval of tonight's agenda. Can I have a motion? Councillor Sherwood and Councillor McIntosh, all in favor? And that's carried unanimously. We had no closed session today, so we're straight into the open session, and we will begin with the singing of our national anthem, and I would ask if you rise if you're able, please.
Oh, Canada, a home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
We would like to acknowledge the treaty lands and territory of the Williams Treaty Nations and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. We also recognize that Dufferin County is the traditional territory of the Wendat and the Haudenosaunee and is home to many Indigenous people today. Tonight's meeting is being aired on public television and or streamed live and may be taped for later public broadcast or webcast. Your name is part of the public record and will be included in the minutes of tonight's meeting. Any member of the public connecting via telephone is reminded to press *6 to mute and unmute. Please remain muted until the chair requests comments or questions from the public. We have no rise in report, but we do have a couple of previous council meeting minutes to approve. The motion is that the minutes of the following meetings be approved, which is the 17th of June council public meeting minutes and from the 24th, the council minutes. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Prendergast. Any questions or comments on the minutes? All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. We will move straight into question period. Any member of the public connecting via telephone is reminded to press *6 to mute and unmute and that they have a maximum of 3 minutes to ask their question. Is there anybody on the phone that's going to be asking a question? We do have one on the phone. If you want to press *6, we'll start with you. Okay, we will come back to you. Is there anybody in the gallery who wishes to ask a question? Yep, come on up. You can just head to the delegation table. Well, hopefully your mic is working. Yep, it is. Perfect. And if you can just state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Noel Ramsey. I live at 15 Feed Street here in Orangeville. I've got a question, but I want to read something to you first. I don't want to use up all of my 3 minutes. It's a real estate listing. It talks about a beautiful 4-bedroom Cape Cod style residence highlighted with meticulous landscaping, professionally renovated, conveniently walking distance to farmers market, multiple restaurants, main streets, shopping, 2 schools, parks, Tony Rose Recreation Center and exhibits, and it goes on and on and on. It's actually a really nice brochure, lovely home, and we bought it in 2015. One of the reasons that we chose that house, just one of the reasons, was the excellent surroundings that we had in that end of town and all the facilities that we had. Obviously, we were retired. We didn't need the high school. Parks, yeah, some of it, walking our dog on leash and stuff like that. But it was really an asset to have the recreation center just at the end of the street within walking distance. There's a lot of older homes in that area that there's older families, either well-established families or seniors that use the facility quite a bit. So it's quite a valuable asset. And that's what I'm coming to with regards to my concern. I have a predicament in which I don't know how to bring something forward to the town, because a lot of times when we bring things forward to the town, it's redirected directly to a department and the department head or the staff within that particular department. The problem I've been experiencing when I think of things like mechanical failures at Tony Rose and they're going to consider closing it down, when I see sea line being dug up for a second time at the culvert being replaced because they didn't work with the fisheries department to understand that they had to not interfere with the fish spawning, so they had to seal up the road and then come back again and dig it up. The Alder Street pool, which was a 4-year fiasco. I don't know who was doing the project management on that. There's always explanations and reasons for it, but the management of the whole thing is questionable. Mill Street Library, you put in an elevator and it took what seemed to be a year plus to put in a library. And what really caught my eye, besides the Tony Rose pool, was the water issue about we're now looking at water restrictions and watering your day 1 day a week. So it brings me to the problem and the question I've got. We've got this valuable asset at the end of the street, and we've got other assets in town that aren't being maintained, or from my perspective, as a citizen that's paying the taxes, they're not being managed properly and they're being allowed to deteriorate. And I see that things are going wrong. Anytime we have a concern, it gets redirected to that particular department. So I don't know what the right word is, whether I'm upset or angry, but my severe concern, if I want to put it that way, is that my avenue is directly to you as council members. Individually, I like you all. Professionally, in the roles that you're playing, because in effect, you work for the citizens here, I don't give you a very good grade when it comes to the management oversight of the town facilities and the staff. The reason I come at it that way is because about 2 years ago, we had a town hall meeting at Tony Rose, and our new CIO or CEO, I guess, whatever his official title was, made it very clear that the town staff reports to him directly and only to him, and he reports to council. So our course of action is not to staff, and it's not to the managers of it, and it's not to him, it's to you. What we see are facilities that are being allowed to deteriorate, and they're considering closing a facility because a mechanical piece of equipment is deteriorating, or something wasn't installed properly, or they didn't work with another department. I'm concerned about how these things are being managed and your oversight of the corporation that's reporting to you. Who do I go forward to? Do I send an email to all of council, or do I have to come here to complain that the management of these departments is failing? I wouldn't be surprised if we get a memo saying that we're restricted on how many times we're allowed to flush the toilet. Right. Public Works, from what I see, does a lot of investment in the sewage facilities. We see a lot of like large expenditures being done there. So I'm confident that they're ahead of the game. What I'm not confident is how something like an arena and a pool facility, 2 pool facilities, are allowed to run without anybody managing the maintenance of it, the upkeep of it. The water infrastructure. The CIO said they're on top of it and it's been planned. But I see developments all around town. I'm still waiting for a report on the water development that was, or sorry, I call it water development, that was supposed to be coming forth about 3 council meetings ago or 4 council meetings ago. There's going to be a report saying all the developments that have gone in and how much impact it's going to have on our water. And it's stated that they're on top of it, that we're not having a water crisis or issue. I'm sorry, I don't believe that. We have a planning department and we have a department that manages the waterworks. And if we have to start turning off the tap at any point in time, that means it's not being managed properly. It should have been managed ahead of time, whether it's a new tower, a new pump, a new well. It shouldn't be a surprise. And the mechanical problem that's failing at Tony Rose is coming across as a point where, oh, gee, we've got $1 million piece of equipment and you're going to close a facility because of it. These pieces of equipment have shorter life terms than the buildings they're in. I'm sure that the hockey community would be very upset if we found out that the equipment making the ice is going to fail, or the roof over the arenas needs to be repaired. You have to spend $5 million to put a new roof in. You're going to close the arenas. We need to do a better job managing the departments for us, the citizens. So my question, one question, who do I come forward to when we are not satisfied with the management of these departments?
At any time, Mr. Ramsey, or send us an email, all of council. We are not experts in any of the departments. None of us are. None of us are engineers or water experts or wastewater experts. We do have very capable staff who are taking care of all of those areas. So often we will defer your technical questions to some of them. Council does have the oversight. Our one employee is the CAO. You're exactly right when you're saying that, which means that we don't have the ability to control or manage the day-to-day operations. We're an oversight body, and that's how it should be laid out, is that we are an oversight body. We do give direction to the CAO, who distributes that direction to the rest of the staff. So what you are seeing now is you are seeing investments in asset management that have been historically not done. We are dealing, this council is collectively right now dealing with decades and decades and decades of underspending in infrastructure and in our assets. So when we're talking about $1 million for the pool at Tony Rose, we're not talking about shutting down the facility. We're talking about shutting down the pool temporarily until we reassess what our grand situation is, because we don't want to end up in an Alder Street situation, which was a $600 project that turned into 3 years and $10 million because of what we found underneath when we took out the pool liner. So again, this is decades of underinvestment in infrastructure that our council is currently working on. So I'll leave you with that for now. You've asked a lot of questions about a lot of departments, and I've got a gallery full of people who want to speak, but you're welcome to send me personally or council an email at any time. I'll let Heather, Ms. Savage, if she's interested, she's filling in as CAO right now because her CAO is on vacation. If there's anything you want to add, Ms. Savage, you're welcome to.
Thank you, Mayor Post. Mr. Ramsey, I've noted some of your concerns. I think it'll probably require a longer conversation. I'm also available. You also noted that you're waiting on some correspondence from CAO Smith, which I will relay that message.
Not necessarily from COA Smith. It was from, well, the council meeting, so I'm not sure who's reporting it. By the way, it's nice to hear your voice. I'm complaining to you folks, not to these departments. We hold you accountable for what's going on. And when you say that, you know, you're investing now, this is not your first day on the job. So when I say like a -C or a D rating, yes.
advocating for the province and to the feds for better investment in infrastructure, because the reality is, which you heard at budget time, because I know you were at these meetings, is that the way that tax dollars are allocated right now is that the majority of it goes to the feds and the province, but we maintain all of the infrastructure and don't get the funding to do it with anything outside of property taxes. So we're advocating for better funding structures from the province and the feds so that we can fix a lot of these problems, because we can't just increase everybody's property taxes by 50% to pay for the infrastructure deficits. We need to do it in a planned and well thought out way in order for us to address this historical long list of infrastructure deficits. You've named a few of them, but that's just a few, because our roads and our sidewalks and all of those would be included in some of the problems.
Right. When we see, hold on a second. Sorry, when we see sea lion being dug up for a second time, I will just come back and just say one thing. If what you're saying is true, if you are doing these investments, if we should be considering that, then you're doing a very poor job of communication, because the impression that we're getting as citizens is that it's not being managed. That's our impression.
You just say your name for the record, and then you've got your 3 minutes.
It won't take that long. Laura Reed, and address is 195 Howard. It kind of harkens back to what Mr. Ramsey was saying and what you were saying about the long-term infrastructure. I don't see, as far as Tony Rose is concerned, there has ever been any long-term infrastructure planning. The 10-year facilities capital budget that is currently online, that covers 2024 to 2033, has precious little resources for Tony Rose. Rooftop replacement, let's do it in order. 2026, you have facility upgrades at 2 million and exterior siding for Rink A at 200,000. Rooftop unit replacement in 2030 at 60,000. The only budgeted line for Tony Rose Pool itself in a 10-year facilities budget from 2024 to 2033 is $350,000 line item for 2026 for the change rooms. The change rooms. Don't get me wrong, they do need some TLC, but it is, I don't see how you can say about the long-term infrastructure investment when in a 10-year period budget that was hammered out in 2023, there's precious little here for Tony Rose. The facility in general, the pool specifically. So,
I'm happy to address that question.
Yeah.
Previous to this term of council, as well as this term of council, lots of conversation has happened about Tony Rose. We've known that this day was going to come for a long time. Tony Rose, again, has been a neglected facility for a long time. And quite honestly, it's old. It's over 50 years old. It served the community well. And in past budgets, we had conversations about how we wanted to invest in Tony Rose. And the reality was we knew that we didn't want to put a whole ton of money into Tony Rose until we could have a broader question about what we want the future of Tony Rose to look like. We put forward an RFP in 2 years ago about the facilities needs assessment. And we were waiting for the results of that to come back on what the community needs for growth and for usage, because we know that the pool has served us well, that the facility has served us well, but we also know that there's parts missing. There's demographics that we're not reaching with Tony Rose, and the change in demographics for usage and recreation has changed dramatically over the last decade or so. So we wanted to have that broader conversation. Unfortunately, nobody replied to that RFP. We didn't have anybody interested in doing that facilities needs assessment. If the report that's in tonight's council meeting asks for staff to do that facilities needs assessment, and then they will bring forward what their recommendations are for Tony Rose, which would include an itemized list of all of the things that need to be added, fixed, budgeted for. So those were purposely removed from the budgets during budget conversations over the past 4, 5, 6 years that most of us have sat at this table, because we knew that there was a much larger discussion that needed to happen about the future of the facility.
Okay, and are we looking at closing down the whole facility or just the pool or just the pool? So what will happen to that space when the pool is shut down?
Right now.
Mm-hmm.
Facility assessment is done, and then staff will come back with a recommendation on how to proceed. So right now, nothing will happen. Everything will stay status quo until council is given recommendations on how to move forward. And that's the recommendation that's in the agenda.
Okay, because I'm kind of, I'm not sure how, like, if they convert it, whatever they convert it to, that's going to cost money too. Well, it's not going to be an empty space. It's not going to sit there as a dead space. Okay. Right.
Staff can gather more data, do a facilities assessment and figure out how we move forward. And then we can invest appropriately and with a long-term vision in mind. So that's
Okay.
what tonight's report is.
Okay.
Oh, Heather, Ms. Savage?
Thank you, Mayor Post. That's okay. Yes, and that's where we're going to consult all of you. So you're right. We at this point don't know. We do have the 2020 Recreation and Parks Master Plan that has identified recommendations about what to do with Alder and Tony Rose. It's time we revisit that, look at the bigger picture, and allow council to make a more informed decision as to what's next. But you will be a part of those conversations.
So thank you for your question.
Just want to weigh in on that as well. But it was interesting in the conversation, we talked about Tony Rose and the arenas. And the arenas are in trouble too. So Tony Rose B is the worst arena in Ontario, in my opinion. If you've stood in there for any amount of time, you'll understand what's going on with the floor. It would be irresponsible of this council, in my view, irresponsible of me to vote to put more money into that space at this point. The change rooms are small. The change rooms are not private. So you have larger individuals now from when the building was built, trying to change in an area where they can't change. The doors swing open. So if someone from the opposite sex is walking by, it's not the most private place to be changing. There's just significant issues with the building. And we need to talk about that as we go forward and about what we're going to do. We can talk about the asset management. We could lay it at the feet of this council. The reality is this hasn't been looked after in years. The pool was voted to close in 2014 and council said no. They decided to keep it open and the financial bills have kept rolling up and rolling up and rolling up. We all just got our tax bills. Each and every one of us got them. I heard from a ton of people talking about taxes. If we continue to spend on an antiquated arena, this is where we're going to be. We're going to continue to raise taxes at a disproportionate rate because we need to fund these projects. So it's a circular argument. It's a very difficult thing. I get that people are frustrated, but this is where we're at. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you, Mayor Post.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Was there, Councillor Sherwood.
Thank you, Your Worship. One of the things I wanted to just bring to your attention, and the $1.1 million just for the part for the pool alone would represent a 3% tax increase just for that. So if you're willing to put in a 3% tax increase and without it looking after anything else in the budget, that was where we would be starting, which is really hard to justify when you're going to have other people saying we don't want that 3% tax increase for that facility. So that's just something to ponder about. We don't have the money set aside for this, so it would represent 3%.
The question period is still on. So yes, whoever's up next can come up. And thank you, Councillor Sherwood. Again, we need your name and address for the record. And when it comes to Tony Rose, when we get to that item in the agenda, everybody on council is going to have an opportunity to weigh in before we move any motions forward.
I just have.
Yep, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't know if I can. I have one question.
We just have to start with your name and address.
Sorry, Margaret O'Brien on Oak Ridge Drive.
Thank you.
When we moved here 50 years ago, this town was 9,000. It's in the, what, 45,000 for 31,000. And you're talking about the future, We're going to build, we're going to grow this town. This town needs 2 poles because one does not cut it. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Who's next?
Can you hear me on the line?
Yes, we can.
Okay, when you're ready, I would also like to chime in. Sorry, I wasn't able to hear you earlier.
No, thank you.
If you're happy. Well,
Okay,
let's
we'll
what?
let you go on the phone first. Go ahead. We need your name and address for the record.
So it's Stephanie Coombs from 14 Highland Drive.
Thank you.
And I wanted to chime in, and it's not very much a question, but more so some insight I'd like to give you a counsel with regards to Tony Rose. I recently joined a group of grade 3s, 8 and 9-year-olds doing the Swim to Survive program with the school. We used the Tony Rose facility, and for the first time ever, the teachers themselves said they've never seen such a large group of students unable to swim, let alone float. These children are suffering at the hands of our town due to the COVID closures and due to Alder being closed for 3.5 years. We have a large population of children who are unable to get into swimming lessons because we don't have the facilities for it. And I am well aware that the Alder pool took a bit longer to open up because of the shortage of lifeguards. And I want to let you know that if we don't teach our children now how to swim, you won't have lifeguards in the future. So if we don't invest in our children today and we start closing down facilities and preventing them from even accessing swimming lessons, things are just going to roll out and get worse. We live in a country that should, at the minimum, know how to swim and skate, but yet they know how to play soccer, baseball, and lacrosse before all of that. Okay? So those are my two things. And not only that, but I was just informed recently that, again, we no longer have a finance team and that our CFO is no longer in existence. Our town, from anywhere I have ever lived, I can tell you that there is no reason this town should be so fragile, so frugal, and so depleted financially. So I think this is way more than just infrastructure. I think we also need to learn how to better manage our finances with the town and maybe stop laundering finances over to, Blues and Jazz gets $20,000, but a mental health facility who's willing to assist people in our community with mental health, and they got zero. We need to start putting money where we need it and stop giving it away.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
It's a big problem. Okay.
Thank you. Yep. Oh, okay. We're having some troubles with people hearing on the microphones, apparently. They can only hear the delegate. Okay, we may need to fix that before we proceed further. Okay, we'll take a short recess. Okay. All right, we are going to continue. Apologies for that. We're having some really big technical difficulties today. Was there anybody else in the gallery who had a question? Wish to ask a question? Yep, come on up. If we can just make sure your mic is on and state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Nira Jaksic. I live at 45 Bethia Street, Orangeville. I've been in Orangeville over 10 years. I've been studying government for over 40 years from the John Crutch and Mike Harris days. And the only thing I ever hear when there's an issue is we got no funding, we got no funding. First of all, I know we got the funding. I know how much money we have. The taxes skyrocket, never enough money. It's because how you use it and all the raises the government gets. That swimming pool should never have gone disarray. Another thing, why do we live on a lake, island lake, no one can swim? Why isn't there at least one outdoor pool for a community like this? And also, Orangeville has grown tenfold. Why is it still called a town? It really is a small city. It's overloaded, overcrowded, and there's too much chaos going on, and nobody's doing anything. This one talks to that one. Talk to that one, I'll talk to this one. I'll get to you then. Send us an email, write us a letter, send us a type of phone call. No, what we need is action, and I'm sick of it, tired. So is everybody else about, we have no funding. It costs this many million. Yeah, we know it costs, and we got the money. We pay sky-high taxes for a reason, and we are still in a town, and it's growing. There's lots of people and lots of people paying more and more taxes, yet nothing moves. The swimming pool's going, oh, it's closing. That one's just opened. We got this and that, and like the lady caller who was just here, the last caller, she was absolutely right. She too was talking about funding. No, government has lots of funding. It's how you use the money. No one can teach me that we don't have funding. I've been studying this, as I said, since 30 years. And, it's always, oh, no funding. Taxes high, it's still no funding. More high. No, it's all BS, okay? What it is the government counselors and the feds, all of you need to move your asses and start working for the people and not for yourselves. Thank you.
No, this gentleman's coming and you can come next.
All right. Matthew Smith, 38 McCarthy Street. I'd just like to know what the status is of the rail trail, the section that's behind the Avalon Retirement Home, because that was washed out in the big storm in the end of June, and it's been closed off ever since. I'd just like to know if it's going to be repaired at some point.
Ms. Havish?
Thank you, Mayor Post. I'm going to answer part of the question, and then I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Koselleck. So it is on our radar. I know that Park staff was out there, I believe, on Friday, trimming up some of the overgrowth that has developed in that area, and the washout part is based on the construction. We are waiting for them to get to a certain stage before it is repaired. But again, I'll pass that to Mr. Koselleck.
Mr. Koselleck?
Yeah, through your worship. One of the big things is they're going to be constructing the access for the new Avalon facility in that area. They're supposed to be starting pretty much any day. They were looking at starting mid-July. So as part of that construction, they'll be putting the access through for Avalon and also be reinstating the pathway. So it may not be completed for another few months while they're doing the construction in that area. They're trying to bring a lot of the equipment in so they have it all ready to go. So when they get at it, they'll get it fairly quickly, but it could take a couple months for that work to be completed.
Months. Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Thanks. Ma'am, you are next. You can come on up. You who said, is it me? Come on up. Sorry, I don't know everybody's names. I wish I did. Come on up. And again, name and address for the record.
Yeah, it's Japan, and it's 43 Bethia Street. And I just want to make an appeal, okay? I don't want to talk about money or
to you just a little bit.
Oh, sorry, not used to this. I've worked with geriatric in the geriatric nursing realm for over 30 years. Never thought I'd get to the stage that I am, but I'm handicapped now myself. Anyway, my appeal is that I would really like to see Tony Rose kept open when you get to that stage where you're going to decide what you're going to do with it. And I know I speak for several other people, some of which aren't here tonight because they're more handicapped than I am. Anyway, it's in town. it's, and these are my two of my bigger points, is that for children who are allowed to walk a long distance, they can access it because it's in town. They won't, many of those children won't be able to get out to Alder Street on their own. But in town, a lot of the children over a certain age can, anyway, and that's a good thing. And that speaks to what the other lady spoke about, the children, to think about them. But from my perspective, Tony Rose is far more convenient for handicapped people to use than the other pool, than Alder Street. And that is because you can park close to it. And anyway, that's the main point. Like I'm swimming at the moment, I'm swimming at Alder Street. I'm not able to do lanes when I've been swimming at the pools for over 20 years now. We never have to use to register, or we just used to go. If you wanted to swim, you just went to the pool. If they allowed you in, you got in, and I've never been turned away. But everything's got so complex now and complicated. Anyway, you'll have to forgive me because sometimes I forget what I'm going to say, and this is a bit nerve-wracking.
No, it's okay. I think your points are very well noted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyway, but I always like to think that I'm an advocate for people that are handicapped, and because I've looked after enough of them in the community. But I'm terrified for the winter what it's going to be like walking from Alder Street pool, from the Alder Street parking lot, and sometimes you can't even get a handicap parking spot in the handicap. The other day I was there and there was a lady on her phone, and the bylaw officer was there, and I'd already asked the lady if she, and she said, "Oh, my mother's in the arena," and that happens. So actually, that's another good point. I'll bring that up some other meeting. But the bylaw officer, he was very, very nice, and I spoke to him, but he didn't issue a ticket. That would have been a wonderful opportunity for, speaking to the handicap space problem for him, because that's the only way people are going to learn if tickets are issued. Anyway, getting back to Alder Street, I'm really frightened for the winter, as many others are. Briefly, I've got 14 pieces of metal just in my left ankle. I've had 16 surgeries. Other people have got way worse situations. They've got muscular dystrophy. They've got, the terms aren't coming, but really, and Tony Rose really serves people like that well. I mean, I don't know who it was, so forgive me, but whoever was talking about doors opening the wrong way, and I mean, that's a minor. I'm not even aware that there's a problem with doors opening the wrong way. There's way more serious problems to consider if you close it, and then we don't, the seniors don't have access. But thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your comments.
But it serves the community well. For the children that can walk to it, and for seniors who need the convenience. You've got to, all of you you're all going to get there one day, trust me. I don't want to come across as sounding rude, but no, seriously.
No, we understand.
And it's only then that people will truly understand what it's like, because I never knew, and I've looked after seniors with terrible conditions for over 30 years. And I never thought that it would be like this. I didn't. And nobody does. I didn't know, you don't know, and fair enough. But you might one day. I wouldn't want to wish that on you, but
thank you so much, Ms. Payne.
Yeah, thank you.
Any additional questions? Come on up.
Good evening. My name's Michelle Hartley, and I'm on Morgandale Crescent. I've lived in Orangeville 30 years, and I have 5 kids actively currently using Tony Rose and Alder, using the arena for lacrosse, and using the pools. I'm not angry, and I think this council is doing a terrific job I think that the anger is coming out because we're all frustrated. This really sucks. It's a situation that sucks. I was at Alder, so I know I got 3 minutes and I'm going to talk really fast. And I hope I give you points that you're like, oh shit, that was a good one. Okay. All right. I was at Alder last week or 2 weeks ago, and I think its capacity is 35 people. It's got to be no more than 35, and it was full. I had to register online. I got the last 3 spots, which was cool. There was a waiting list of people outside. You have to wait. So there was a grandmother that is not transitioned to this new way and had to tell her grandchildren just in case somebody doesn't show up, and they didn't show up and they couldn't go in. So I've since gone to rebook, and it's full, but it doesn't go past like July 30th. Say I wanted to book September, October, it doesn't go that far. That's a frustration that I wanted to share. I think, in my opinion, the pool needs to come down and be rebuilt, and so does Rink B. I think that if you could take it down, and I know that really sucks, but if you're not a part of the solution, you're a part of the problem. And someone here made a really good point about your lake and why can't we swim there? And if you could work with the conservation and be like, hey, we can get the beach, we can open up the beach and maybe have a maximum of 50, that might open up to why your arena's closed down and being fixed, where we can send people. I know it's in town. I know the parking's great. There's problems on both ends, but with regards to Rink B, the lighting is very poor as well. With the 3%, you're saying our taxes are going to go up, and someone else said about communication. We need to know that. That needs to be like a fun fact, but not really fun on your website. And then it should say, hey guys, if we don't get funding, your tax is going to go up 6%. If we do get funding, it's going to go up 3%, but a 2-year wait or something. I hear that you guys are not in favor of a second pool, and that would be horrible. So I have a question that I'm hoping you're all going to say yay or nay or yeah, whatever, dance the jig. Are you all in favor of a second pool in town?
I'll let everybody answer that, whether you want to do it now or you want to do it during your.
Because that's a whole other ball game that you're going to be dealing with. If we know you guys are supporting a second pool, we want to help you fix this crisis. But we don't want to come half-ass in to find out that 3 of you guys are going to be behind closed doors and say, that's ridiculous. We're not even. You cannot have 31,000 people aging. I will also share with you that years ago, there was institutions, people that had disabilities were living in institutions. They're closed, and that's a great thing. We have more group homes here. We have more people that need to have this exercise. And often I supported people with disabilities. Fergus is an amazing pool, and I'll tell you a couple reasons why. Because if we get to the part where we need to rebuild a pool, it should be done right. The therapeutic warmth of the water is one thing for aging people and people with disabilities. Over in Fergus, and I would hope someone from your council would go for a drive and see what I'm sharing with you. There's 3 areas, and there's an area for the little tots, and then there's a massive, awesome pool with a ramp and therapeutic warm water, and then there's a spa, a hot spa. Now, if someone wants to talk about not enough, I don't want to ever hear you guys say, well, we won't have enough staff, because that's also another issue that we can resolve quite easily. Somebody on Facebook, because I'm always on Facebook, is saying that, well, we don't have staff. Staffing is a crisis everywhere. It's not going to be a new thing. But my recommendation, if your engineers and your brilliant people in math and everything like that say it's just more cost effective to tear it down and reboot, I would like to be on a committee that would help you guys design, because I'm involved and these people are involved, and I was just there last week, and I'm sure you guys were there last week. You know, your engineers are brilliant up here, but we're brilliant here, and with lacrosse, we're living it. So I didn't expect to speak, and I think I have a lot more to say, but I can't remember it. So, okay. Thank you for your time. And I do support you. I do. I think you're doing a fabulous job. Communication is key. And that 3%, I didn't know about our taxes. That was an aha moment today. So I'm glad I came. And I was going to bring my 11-year-old. This is kind of funny. The only reason he didn't come was because he was going swimming down the street.
Well, thank you very much.
I think that's funny. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Maybe during their comments or. later during the report. So we can move through question period. Was there anybody else on question period?
Statement?
Quickly, yeah,
Okay.
come on up.
So my name is Kelly Miller Purdy, and I do not live in Orangeville. I live in Mono, but I am part of Dufferin County. I support and I pay for my membership at the pool. The demographic in the room that is currently being a little bit forgotten with the Alder situation right now being the only pool open is that many of us, I recognize all these fine people behind me, we swim, we lane swim, we swim because we love it, we swim because we need it, because many of us have had injuries and age-related issues. And without that, we hurt and we can't continue. There are some people who are actually, how do I put, they need that to take part in their day. Just to keep physically lubricated and active, they need that. One of the problems that us loyal lane swimmers are having right now is very frustrating. When we show up to Alder and we have to get up early in the morning to get the 3 spots or 4 spots that are available that day, because now they're doing shared lanes. When you show up to swim and you're a senior, you're there to swim. We take that hour and we go. When you're sharing with 4 people in one lane, it makes it pretty much impossible to get your swim on. You're concerned about running into somebody, somebody's slow in front of you, somebody's too fast behind you. The next thing you know, your heart's gonna blow because you can't keep up with or you're going, holy shit, get out of my way, right? The most frustrating thing last week that we ran into, a group of us, is there's 2 lanes. It's called a shared swim. There's this giant space in the middle that not one person was swimming in, 0. And we were not permitted to go in there.
Yeah, okay. No, that's good feedback.
That is ridiculous. And I will say one more thing. We support that membership all winter long. The school year is going, the kids are in school, they're doing their thing. So the daytime activities at the pool are, they're less. Makes sense. That's not a complaint at all. But now that the school is out, and totally appreciate that, yes, these children need to learn how to swim and all that stuff. I support that 100%. We're getting pushed to the side. Our times have gone. They're all over the place. We can't sign up. We have a right to keep what we've been enjoying. Yeah. And we'd like you guys to help us do that, please.
No, appreciate that commentary. Ms. Savage, did you want to pipe into programming at all? Anything you want to add? Or Ms. Doherty, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Post. I understand where you're coming from, and I did have staff mention to me some of the topics that you're speaking about. With shared lane swim, one of the things that happened is when we planned our summer programming at the time, because we planned programs 6 to 8 months in advance, we didn't anticipate the closure of Tony Rose. So now we are backtracking to try and accommodate as best we can. And I know Stephanie Laup, who's our recreation supervisor in aquatics, knows most of you and goes out onto pool deck quite often, and had that discussion with some of you in the last couple of weeks. We're doing our best to program as much as we can, and we are looking at our fall programming and taking into consideration all those aspects, including individual lane swims, early morning, and actually we just had a meeting today to talk about it, and what we can do during the daytime. During the daytime to accommodate as many participants in the pool as we possibly can. I will follow up on the one where there was the empty lanes. She did mention that to me, and I know there was an explanation at the time. Sometimes some of our, and I don't want to use this as an excuse, but sometimes some of our young lifeguards are maybe a little bit apprehensive because it's been booked for a class, and if something happens to that program or activity and it's not happening at that time, maybe they're not feeling empowered to be able to say, yeah, I can move the lane over. And we can address some of those things with our full-time staff team as well.
Thank you so much.
So just if we can continue to keep the seniors in mind, we need our spots. We need them to be able to walk to the market because our legs won't work if they don't.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was there any other questions? Excellent.
Thank you, Mayor Post. My name is David Waugh. I met to Amanda. I'll keep this brief and dive right in the nature and spirit of pools. I guess, first of all, I want to start by saying that I certainly acknowledge the work that this council is doing. So I want to say thank you to all of you. You guys are doing some heavy lifting that's long overdue, and it deserves credit and appreciation and our gratitude because it's not easy. It takes courage and leadership, and these are some tough decisions, and they're going to be tough conversations. There's going to be choices to be made, choices by us and choices by you. And I think these are the kinds of dialogues that we need to have. So thank you for engaging all of us and for showing the leadership courage that you have. It certainly shines through and I appreciate it. On the topic of pools, as a dad of three kids under 7, we've been driving to Fergus for the last year because we weren't able to take our kids to the cottage last summer because we were afraid that one of them would fall off the dock, right? It's a real thing. So I do see the need, and we're also folks that are within walking distance of Tony Rose, and we won't go there because our kids won't go in that pool because it's too cold. So we see the need. My question, I suppose, is just looking to the future. I guess my question is this review that's being proposed for the facility. I just want to make sure we're capturing the full conversation in the sense that is this a symptom of a broader challenge with respect to the funding formula of these facilities, right? With all due respect to my prior speaker from Mono, and I do acknowledge that we get some funding support, whether it be for the fire station or the library or elsewhere, but I'm not sure that fully captures the capital investment required. Like maybe contributes to the operating needs, but the capital investment is far more significant. So I guess just as we approach this facility review, and I know this is an ongoing dialogue at the county as well, is there going to be a link there between those two conversations? Because to me, that's really the elephant in the room around, do we need a fix to the funding formula for these facilities, writ large, right? So I know there's no answer. I just want to make sure that we're not missing that as part of this conversation.
So stay tuned to the motion that I want to bring forward about Tony Rose, because it doesn't capture that a little bit, because you're exactly right. There is ongoing challenges when it comes to funding from neighboring municipalities. Exactly. And I'm sorry, Mono, I know that you do pay your non-residence fees, but there is an opportunity when it comes to capital. And I've captured some of that in the motion that I hope to bring forward about Tony Rose at the end of our conversation. So stay tuned.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Sorry.
You can name and address for the direct. And then go ahead.
Let me get my leg in here. There we go. James Jackson, 50 Carlton Drive, Orangeville, Ontario. I'm going to switch tracks here and not talk about the pool. Actually, mine's more of a concern. It's not so much as a question. Something that was brought to my attention today was actually our bus service. One of the new buses, somebody was trying to get onto the bus, but the bus driver wouldn't even lower the bus to help this person get in. They needed the bus lowered down, but the driver wouldn't do that. I'm just wondering if that training is actually going through with First Canada, like if they're actually training their drivers to be that inclusive part. It doesn't seem as if they're following AOD standards and even following the Disabilities Act, because they're when we use the school buses, that's even problematic for even myself, like trying to get up onto a school bus. Heaven forbid if you have a service dog, because a service dog can't, this shouldn't be up in the chair or up on the benches. But I've heard that's also an issue as well. So.
Through your worship. James, do you know what route it was or what day it was or any details at all?
All I know is it was today, And the gentleman didn't tell me what route it was. It was just, he just told me that the bus driver itself wouldn't lower. It was on one of the new buses, apparently. So, but that the driver wouldn't lower the bus down. Considering the TTC does that, they've done that, and GO has done that for me. Why can't we do that?
We'll try and look into it. And if you do talk to the person, maybe give them my phone number and see if you can give a call and we can try and look into the issue.
Okay.
We'll follow up with First Student too.
Okay.
As far as training, I know they were signing up for additional training on accessibility, but we'll have to follow up with them to see. I'm not sure if they've completed it all or not.
I think Ms. Doherty has insight into that as well. Go ahead.
I think your Mayor Post through you. Mr. Kochelik is correct. We are working with First Student right now. I sit on the Accessibility Committee, as Mr. Jackson knows, with our Manager of Transportation, Tony DeLuce. And First Student identified that summer would be the best time. Obviously, they're not as busy during the summer months with school routes, and that training should be happening this summer.
Okay. Thank you. I just, like I said, it's just, when this person brought it to my attention, I was like, interesting that we're not even following under the Ontario Disabilities Act. It was just, yeah, it was very problematic to me. So, thank you.
That anytime that you get feedback like that from anybody, if you can direct them to report it directly to the town, that way we can best deal with it and have all the information as quickly as possible.
You got it.
Thank you.
Sorry, there's been a complaint at 43 Matthias Street from different people, not from me.
Okay, we've got to stick with question period. Okay, who's else is up for a question period?
I've heard.
Yeah, come on, Mr. Galini. Sorry, Ms. Payne, we can't hear you when you're not at the mic. So we have a process because the people on YouTube need to be able to hear you.
Well, Ugalini Rick, Cedar Drive, Orangeville, and I think that's Ontario. Yeah. And evening Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members, and town staff. I'm here tonight to speak on John Street and the new bridge. I was there today taking some measurements, and it doesn't meet requirements. The sidewalk is brutal. For a brand new bridge that was just finished, I'm appalled that it doesn't meet requirements. The sidewalk is too small when two people can't walk side by side. When somebody with a disability is on the sidewalk, people have to walk on the road, which I had to do today. And I saw this today, and I have pictures too. And I have dimensions. And my question is, why isn't it built to AODA specifications and municipality specifications?
Through your worship, I guess if you're replacing the bridge, then we build it to all the standards we can because we have the opportunity to replace the platform and build it any size. Right now, this was just a retrofit to do some repairs on the bridge, just so the asset lasts that much longer. So we didn't reconstruct it to make a wider bridge. So
I'm not talking about the bridge. I'm talking about the sidewalk.
The sidewalks on.
Minimum sidewalk requirement for sidewalk in Ontario is 1.5 meters, which in my language, it's 59 inches, almost 5 feet. And it's not. 41 inches.
And we'll let Mr. Koslak continue to answer because I think he was getting to that point.
Okay. Yeah, and if we're replacing the bridge, then we could put a full size. So I think they put back the same size that was there, just from a maintenance point of view, and that's what they can. But I'll look into it. This is the first concern we've had about it. So we'll look into it and we can follow up with you later in the week.
You can see the old sidewalk, which is still under requirement size by 3 millimeters, big deal. But it narrows down from 59 inches to 41 inches. And is this a mistake? The guardrail itself takes up the concrete pad that is built originally is 59 inches. And you take away 17 inches for the guardrail, and it doesn't leave much room. And I noticed this just driving by them going, this isn't built to code. And is this a mistake? And is the same thing going to happen to C line? If it's a mistake, let's fix it now.
Thank you for bringing it forward. And Mr. Koslak said he'll continue to look into it and he'll let you know. So if you want to send him or leave him those measurements, that's in your prerogative to do that. Thank you for your time, Mr.
They will be sent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions in the gallery? Mr. Ramsey, we'll give you one last shot at it here, and then we'll call an end to question period, because I think we've nailed everybody. So go ahead.
Thank you. Already stated my name and address. I just want to clarify a couple things because Deputy Mayor mentioned that there's problems with Arena B and there's with potential problems with the roof. So, oh, sorry, was there, you said okay, so we're looking at spending a lot of money on the roof, right? Is that correct? Okay. And also, Councillor Sherwood mentioned that if we do go forward with something like this, it could be a 3% tax hike. If there's a problem with the arenas where it becomes an expenditure that cannot be fit into the budget, and if we're concerned about the impact to the budget for the pool, there's a potential that this facility could be closed or torn down for future purposes and left vacant for a short period of time. At my stage in life, at our stage in life, we've been there about 10 years, and the impact to the potential value of our property could significantly impact people in our demographic, because if we go to sell the property, I recently contacted our real estate agent and they said that, you know, oh, the pool won't close, they'll replace the pool. And I said, well, what if they do it? She says, well, the arena's still there, they'll still have the rec center. And I said, well, what happens if it all closes? And she goes, well, that would not be good. Now, I was expecting her to tell me that it would be like a 0.5% impact on the value of our property or a 1% impact value of the property. She says, if something like that happens, you have a vacant property across from the school that's left for an indeterminate period of time, you go to sell your property, you could have a 25% hit. Now, people may disagree with that, but when you're talking property values in that area of $1.1 to $1.4 million, that's a lot of money, whether it's 25% or 10%. If you have a problem that's been developed there because of lack of attention for replacing a facility that's of value, that's going to hit the impact of the value of our real estate and basically our investments.
Sure, you're catastrophizing a little bit about the facility, because we're not talking about the facility right now, we're talking about the pool.
I understand, but it's the beginning. But because if you close the pool, then it's not that much farther to close the arenas. It isn't. And another thing, it doesn't serve 31,000 people. It serves a lot more than 31,000 because the other areas. So I keep hearing, how many pools does 31,000 people need? We got to stop saying that. It's a lot more than 31,000. I think I opened a bit of a wound when I said I wasn't happy with the performance of council based on how they manage the staff, but I stand by that. I'm not happy because we see these things show up, and it might be lack of communication, but when we hear these things happening, again, like the Sea Line culvert, and we see these things, and the announcements that come out sometimes, we had a bylaw supervisor, I believe he's not with us anymore, but they announced his salary, and it almost knocked me over when I heard how much a bylaw supervisor's salary was. If that's correct, and I don't want to state the value here, there's a lot of overpaid staff, in my personal opinion, within the town. Not happy with the performance, and when we see the results and hear what it's costing us and potential impact if we try and fix things, we need to do a better job. Either you are doing it and you need to communicate better, or you need to do a better job. Not happy with what we're seeing.
Okay, we'll wrap up question period then. I don't think we have anybody left with their hands up. Mr. Ugolini, you've got one more chance really quickly. We got to move on for the agenda here.
I'd like to talk about our water. Now, do I need to state my name again?
No, go ahead.
Now, we have, I don't know, 12 wells in and around town. And I would say maybe half of those wells are in other municipalities. Now, do other municipalities use the water out of those wells?
Depends on the service. Mr. Kozlak, you can talk to those.
Yeah, through your worship, I think there aren't really any. We don't supply water to Caledon. There's one small development that's coming forward in Amaranth that we'll be providing water to. We don't provide water to Mono. So currently it's only for, no, it's currently only Orangeville residents. There will be one small development in Amaranth that we'll be providing water to that was done as an agreement about 10 years ago.
Now, are any of these other municipalities, if they're using our water, on restriction?
They will be, they'll follow the same requirements as Orangeville.
Well, that should be now.
We don't have any.
Oh, none, zero.
There's zero. There's zero other municipalities using Orangeville water. There will be one coming forward in Amaranth. It's based on an agreement about 10 years ago. They'll have to follow the same requirements Orangeville does for any restrictions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will move into presentations, petitions, and delegations. We will start with Thomas Suda, the Engagement Manager, Advisory Services. And Aman Singh is here as well, the Senior Partner of Advisory Services from SLBC Inc., talking about the 2024 Asset Management Plan for non-core infrastructure assets. I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Just a reminder to have about 5 minutes, so try
Oh.
to keep within that as close as possible.
Okay. So presentation going to be, oh, okay, thanks. Okay, thank you everyone for having us. We'll be presenting the Town of Orangeville's non-core asset management plan today, and will be available afterwards for questions. So the agenda, we'll give a quick refresher on what is asset management, then talk about the Ontario regulation requirements for asset management plans and how the town has progressed in asset management over the past few years. Then we'll talk about the key outcomes of the AM plan in terms of the state of your assets, levels of service, the risk and life cycle strategy, and then the financial strategy, which is where we talk about the funding gaps. And then a quick slide on next steps at the end. So just quickly on what is asset management, really you're trying to balance these three concepts of levels, service, cost, and risk. One of the concepts obviously is cost. You have a certain cost associated to managing your assets, but you're doing that in an environment of limited resources that has obviously come up today. Your assets have to, in that environment, continue to deliver a certain level of service at an acceptable level of risk to the organization. So those three concepts are always in balance to each other. It costs a higher amount of money to provide a higher level of service, but then you're taking on less risk as an organization. Just quickly on the terminology of core assets and non-core assets. Core assets was covered in a previous asset management plan for 2022. That covered the town's roads, bridges, water, wastewater, and stormwater assets. Non-core assets is really a terminology from the regulation which covers all remaining assets. That would be your parks, facilities, fleet, information technology, library, fire, traffic, transit, cemetery services. And what we're talking about today is that the non-core remaining assets. Just quickly on the town's progress on asset management, it is a continuous improvement process over time. In 2016, the town did complete an overall corporate asset management plan. But since then, the regulation came out requiring certain specific requirements in OREG 58817. So the town completed in 2022 the core asset management plan. Today, we're presenting the non-core asset management plan, which is due for July of 2024. Next year, there's another next phase of the AM plan that is due, which covers proposed levels of service. So just quickly on the difference, the context today is current levels of service and how much money is needed to maintain your current service level. Next year is when the town is required, per the regulation, to talk about proposed targets for your service levels, whether they're better service levels or worse, depending on the money that you have available and what's appropriate for the town. So some of the key outcomes quickly, it is a continuous improvement process. So this plan will be improved every time that it's updated. The average asset condition for non-core infrastructure is between fair and good. About 2/3 of the assets are in fair or better condition, but continued investment is required to maintain the service level. The third main outcome is that there is an identified financial gap for the renewal of your existing assets, as has come up today. Our estimate is that the annual funding gap is 2.7 million a year for renewal of your existing non-core assets. The additional growth need is currently identified as the Alder Library expansion and a portion of Operations Center expansion, which is currently not funded. Overall, the town's replacement value for non-core assets is $171 million. You can see the breakdown here. For time purposes, I'll just keep this brief, but you can see that most of the replacement value of assets is within the parks department. That includes the rec facilities as well of $97.7 million. The condition of your assets, as I said, one of the main outcomes is that 2/3 of your assets are in fair or better condition, but that still means that 26% or 45 million is estimated to be in poor or very poor condition. 9.7% of assets were not assessed due to missing condition ratings or installation dates. So again, part of the one of the critical aspects of improvement is to complete those condition assessments that were mentioned today, to resolve some of these gaps, make these estimates also more accurate in terms of representing the state of infrastructure of your assets and the needs going forward. You can see the breakdown here of the very good to very poor asset portfolio. So that 63.7% is the yellow, green, and the yellow, green, and dark green. That's the fair or better portion of the asset portfolio. You can see the orange and red are the poor and very poor portion. And if you look at parks, that includes the rec facilities. That's obviously the biggest value within the non-core portfolio. So you can see the portion there that's some part is obviously red and orange there. That's the poor and very poor assets. The other section of the AM plan is really about levels of service, and they connect back up to the top level strategic priorities for the town. So that's about corporate capacity, making sure your assets are able to deliver the current mandate, future readiness, making sure it's well prepared for the future, community vitality, having your assets cultivate positive supportive connections, and economic resilience, having assets that help support economic development. So these are just some examples of levels of service that are in the AM plan. So we typically group them in three kinds of categories to help inform what type of management they need on the life cycle side. So you may need capacity service levels. Those help drive, do you need to add more assets in terms of growth to address population demands, demographic changes? So for example, the number of residents per community center, or tracking the number of emergency fire responses, those measures help determine, do you need to add more assets to your portfolio? On the functional side, examples are, for example, things that help inform, does the town need to upgrade existing assets? So one of the things the town is doing is tracking the percent of noise attenuation fencing. Currently, there's wooden ones that are being replaced with more long-lasting and robust PVC noise attenuation. And quality and reliability is a third category of levels of service. Those are the traditional asset management type measures that focus on the condition of your assets. So the example here is the percent of assets in the renewal backlog, or that assets that are in very poor condition. Knowing this helps inform what assets do you need to do renewal and operations and maintenance activities. So sorry, I'm going to keep going quickly because of time. But basically, this slide is just showing for the renewal of existing assets, we've estimated that the town needs $6 million per year in investment over the next 10 years. You could see the backlog is in the first year, but what we're really talking about is the black dotted line, which is a 6 million average over the next 10 years. And by spending that $6 million a year, we're maintaining, what we're saying by maintaining service levels, we're maintaining that current condition profile of around 2/3 of your assets in fair or better condition, maintaining that over the next 10 years. So you can see that condition profile being maintained on this slide if you do spend that $6 million per year. But there is a gap. That $6 million per year is really $59.9 million over a 10-year period. You can see that in the first column here. Most of that is within the facilities portfolio. And that's where the gap is as well. You can see overall there's there's $33 million of funding in the 10-year capital plan for renewal of existing assets, resulting in a gap. That's the difference between the $59.9 million and the $33.2 million. That's the gap of $26.7 million over 10 years, which is the $2.7 million average gap per year for state of good repair of your existing assets. On the growth side, currently right now, what's identified is $42.3 million of need. One of that is the new fire station by 2026. That accounts for $22 million. You can see there of the $42 million in that first column. And there is a gap mainly due to the Alder Library expansion that's estimated at $11 million currently not being funded, and a portion of the Operations Center expansion not being funded. And this is currently what is known for growth. Our understanding is obviously you're working on master planning and things that will inform future growth needs as well related to parks and recreation. So last slide is just about next steps and continuous improvement. As I mentioned, asset management is a continuous improvement process. There's always ways to better collect data. As you said, one of the main things is to complete those facility condition assessments. So that's part of improving the understanding of what actually the condition is of your assets right now and what work is needed over the next 10 years. On the software side, the improvement there, recommendation there is to leverage the existing citywide software to have a single source of inventory for all your assets, as well as help with work order planning and maintenance management. And the last key in continuous improvement is really, I had just mentioned it, about incorporating recommendations from ongoing master plans and studies, such as transportation, fleet, IT, cemetery master plans that will help inform the growth of the town and the needs going forward. The next AM plan is due next year for July of 2025. As I mentioned, that's to meet proposed service levels per the regulation requirements. And after that, the regulation requires annual updates to council on the progress of implementing the AM plan. And that's the end of the presentation. Open up for questions, I guess.
Thank you so much. Was there questions from members of council? Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, good evening, gentlemen. Thank you so much for this report. I have to admit that this was a robust read over the weekend, twice, and I know some of my colleagues on council also went through this. This is not just the slides. We're talking, what was it, about 85 pages of detailed information. And again, thank you for providing this information. For the audience that we have here in the gallery, for those that are listening at home, for those that will hear about this through social media, you know, this particular piece is a reflection of this council because of previous councils going back a number of years where this kind of asset management was not done. This planning was not done. You're dealing with a council that has the experience, the understanding, and more importantly, understands and respects the staff that we have here who have the skill set. Having said that, there are a couple of things that I could end up expressing, and I'll do so a little bit later when we talk about the Tony Rose pool. We call it a tsunami of asset depletion, deterioration. We're at that crossroads, and we're not the only municipality in the province of Ontario, let alone in this country. We have municipalities that are dealing with the same topics of concern as we're talking about here tonight. This particular plan provides us with clarity on what we need to do. And I know for those that are in the gallery, those might be listening, you know, sticker shock. You know, we see some of the, you know, the figures, and, you know, I take a look at page 30 in the council agenda, and I'm, you know, calculating it's, you know, 45 million, 26% of our assets right now are either poor or very poor. And if we end up taking a look at that 9.7%, and again, we don't know the clarity on that, that could be, you know, as much as 35% of the assets we have that are deteriorating, and we have to do something about them. We have to make some serious decisions. We also have to end up realizing what the costs will be, and those costs are not depleting, they are escalating every time you delay. And we know for those of us that have projects, we've spoken about them, the costs are increasing. Where I'm going with this is, what about those particular items that we don't have a handle or an understanding of, those unforeseen circumstances? We can't predict that we're going to have another dehumidifier kind of just unfortunately blow up. But do we have an understanding, has any of this been embedded in this document? Because I didn't see it in my second read, there's any reference to those unforeseen circumstances. We're highlighting a financial commitment that we have to look at over a 10-year period, but we're not necessarily also looking at those what ifs. I kind of call it in my household the emergency fund. Just in case something happens, I always have funds available to take care of that unforeseen expense with a car or something that happens with the house. You know, I'm in a situation where I can take care of those situations that may arise. Does this document highlight some of those?
Through the mayor, yes. Sorry, no, the answer is no, it doesn't. You're correct that it doesn't include the what ifs, I guess, or the emergency type scenario. My understanding is that the town would have reserves in place to the financing plan that would account for those things, but it's not specifically accounted for. So the gaps that we're talking about are specifically based on data that we have and what's available. Yep.
And please.
When you look at the condition profile of your assets, think about the condition of your assets as a proxy of the likelihood of failure. So if you have assets that are in good or very good condition, it would be safer to assume that the likelihood of failure of those assets in the short run is going to be lower than the assets that are in fair or poor and very poor. So one of the things that we do recommend is that organizations continue to keep updated condition profile of their assets along with risk assessments so they can focus on the assets that are more critical.
And through your worship, I appreciate that tremendously because, again, historically, I don't think the town did a great job. it is now doing a much better job of at least assessing its assets, determining what the long-term value is, but also what its potential failure rate will be. And this document helps out tremendously, especially with our non-core assets. And I really, really appreciate the detail that has been provided in the report.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Additional questions from the council? Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Mayor Post, through you. I know at times we're often asked questions about the $11 million slated for an Alder Library expansion. I was wondering, Ms. Savage, if you could just explain why that was put in the budget and how that has not actually been approved, but it's just something that has been slated for down the road. Thank you.
Savage, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Post, Councillor Prendergast. So the $11 million, which was determined through a strategy, the library hired a consultant to figure out what is the direction, what's the future of the library. And at that point, they determined that they needed, excuse me, an expansion of about 12,000 additional square feet. At that time, it equated to $11 million. That had been set in the 10-year capital plan. Last year, it was removed from the budget. So it's no longer in the budget. So what we'll do is we will continue to work with developing those strategies and figure out how, where, and when it will return to the budget. I want to make one other point clear. What you see here, and please correct me if I'm wrong, this is representative of approved strategies. So when we say that facilities requires $2.6 million, we know that even around this room, we know that there's going to need a healthier investment in our facilities moving forward, but we don't know what that type of investment looks like until we have council approved strategy in place. So you'll see the $11 million library because that is a council approved strategy. We need to revisit what we know today, figure out what it is we know for the next 10 years. And when we bring those recommendations to council, council then approves those recommendations. And then that's when it will help to inform our non-core assets moving forward. You'll see those numbers increase. The more information we gather, the more conversations we have.
Thank you, Ms. Savage. Any additional questions from members of council? We're good? Councillor Stevens, you're good? Excellent. Okay. Thank you very much for being here. It seems like we've got no additional questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will ask Mary Jane Gerber from York Street to come up and talk about Tony Rose. Go ahead, the floor is yours.
Hi. Well, this has been incredibly informative and has slightly affected what I would say tonight. I don't envy you. This is tough. This is tough. But I have to say, I'm glad it's you that are going to be dealing with it. I've been up here talking about Tony Rose Pool probably 3 times over the years. I feel most concerned but hopeful because I think you're listening and you've got a lot to do and you're facing it. So thank you for that. A lot of the points that I was going to raise have already been talked about in a lot of different ways. And what it really boils down to is equitable access to the life-changing health benefits of swimming and the growing need for that because the town is getting bigger and the population is aging compared to the shrinking of available space. So I'm basically just here to add my voice to the chorus that's calling out to consider the vulnerable in our town as you go through all these numbers and try to figure out what plan is going to work. People who can't drive, people who can't walk, people who can't afford hockey or lacrosse or any of those sports for their children. Swimming is affordable. It's life-saving to know how to do it. I work with newcomers. Most of the newcomers that I see at the pool cannot swim, adults or kids. So this is a big one. And I have always felt that the provincial government, specifically the Ministry of Health, should be kicking in money, because this is a health and safety issue. This is not really a recreation issue. It's about quality of life. It's about the benefits of being fit when you have a disability. We know that every single chronic and acute condition that can reduce the lifespan and to add to the expense in healthcare is reduced through fitness. And ensuring that that fitness is available to all is a huge money saver. So I have no idea what's possible with that. I don't know. That's your job and the staff's job. But I just wanted to raise the importance of it. I'm privileged. I have a car. I can drive to Alder. I have enough money to be able to afford a single pass at the C3 quarry. So I can get the swimming that I need for my disability. But there's a ton of people who can't. And our job is to care for them. So that's basically my plea in a nutshell. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gerber, for being here today. Next, I will ask for Kimberly Mason-Lariche from Orangeville to also come forward. I hope I did your last name justice.
Yes, you do. Very few people know how to pronounce it.
Okay.
I know when it's a robocall because of that. I did have words.
Just make sure the mic is up.
Oh,
Closer to you.
I've got a voice. Yeah. I'm smiling at Joe. I hope you don't mind. I'm not flirting. Just because when I walked in here, I'd never been here before and I was a little nervous about it. Came straight from the pool. So, you know, it's eau de perfume chlorine today. Felt right at home by Joe. So thank you, because I found out that we both worked in radio years ago. I was on CFRB and he was at Chum. And lives have changed since then, and we've got so much more in common as well. So I started off as a kid, putting myself through university many years ago, working for the City of Toronto as a lifeguard, did my nationals, taught swimming, swam competitively, and was part of the programming. Worked at Christie Pitts, High Park. City of Toronto was a great place, especially Sunnyside. Back in the day, the stories then. Now, time moves on and going to school, so medical background and becoming, working on the DASA committee here. I sort of stayed on the periphery living in this town. When you're in radio, as you know, sometimes people think that they know you and they kind of want to get to know you, show up at your house and stuff. So I kind of kept quiet. I did things on the periphery, sang at the Orangeville Jazz and Blues Festival, and was on part of DASA. For those who don't know, DASA's domestic assault, sexual abuse here at Headwaters. Worked at Crisis at Southlake, and was a consult liaison at North York General Hospital in Toronto. With that is working with aged people. And even though we're talking quite a few of us about aged people tonight, because now I think I'm there, you know, I just have to go by my personality now, not just the looks these days. But what you find out is, yes, life expectancy goes down when there's issues with balance, when there's issues with falls, no question. I think for myself personally, when I first came here, even though family were here since I guess the early 60s, is I had started swimming in 2012. I stopped shortly thereafter in 2013. My son had passed away. It was really devastating. And I finally came back after a while. Now, what I want to tell you about lane swim in particular is we're talking about older people and younger kids. Those programs I think are just as vital. I'm kind of more of the greater good for all people type of human being. But what I see is when I look at these people here that I've gotten to know is, thank God, number one, Tony Rose was open during COVID. I don't think it just saved people physically. And I had a car accident. I could not move. I could tap dance now, but I could not walk, seriously. And the other thing is too, is I believe that with not just physical capability comes connection. We have people here that even we talk about young kids or older people, I think connection keeps people going. We've got people that have in this audience that I can tell you are church leaders, people who have taught your kids, people who have been prosecutors. Thank God I'm not there now. And we've got people, air traffic controllers. We've got vital people of this community sitting in front of you. They are also been mentors and people that have been so prominent with our children growing up. You know, I think that's really vital. The kids do need structure. They do need more swimming time in the pool. Right now, I'm seeing it all over the place in Alder. And as a lane swimmer, and not all lane swimmers are handicapped, we are also swimming with people that are, let's say, nationally ranked. They swim with the otters. We have people that, I mean, I was aiming for, you know, I swam 5 kilometers just because of starting swimming here, and raised $5,000 for Parkinson's just because of swimming back and forth at Tony Rose. And people, I see improvements all the time. And it certainly helps. I know a lot of people here at pain clinics that it keeps them mobile and moving, and they are still vital. The programs have been cut down for the women and the men that do Aquafit. I barely see it. There was hardly any for a while. But I guess with having a bit of a background, Joe, with us in journalism, you want to find sometimes where there's smoke. So I would hear stories back in the day about the talk of Tony Rose being closed. Probably a number of these people here have shown up at meetings long before I was even aware. So it was there in the background. Some of the reading I did sounds like it's not just the pool, but is there mold? Is there this? All sorts of things going on. It does sound like maybe, you know, and people always, and with due respect, please believe this is with respect. I do believe, but when you hear about things in politics, which is, well, that party or this party, or when they were in council, or, you know, John Tory's doing it with Olivia Chow. I mean, you know how the list goes on, right? So I would like to think if I'm fighting this fight in 4 years' time, that I'm not hearing people saying, well, that council or this council. I think we all should be working together. And for the greater good of all of us, we do need the things. Now, I just wanted to say at the end of the day, we also have a brilliant person who swims with us, Dr. Melody Weishart. She is a brilliant human being, and I believe wrote a letter that was sent today to Lisa, and I believe perhaps, yeah, well, sorry, I shouldn't have called you Lisa, Your Honor. I apologize. Do they have was there once a jail in this place? Because I'm wondering if maybe by doing that. Okay. Okay. But there's also been not very much, but there has been a lack of empirical evidence when it comes to community needs, especially with aquatic facilities. And basically, this has been going on in various provinces, cities, and states. And it states that they called it batherhood, that it is basically a pool, one pool per 20,000 people. You can find this. I mean, you can find this, and I think Melody also sent you this letter. So, and I'm not sure if she's joining us virtually, but I'm hoping she does, and that her work has been just really outstanding in looking this stuff up. But with the recommendations from the National Parks and Recreation Association, the recommendation that establishes a baseline that community, as I've said, swimming pools have one pool per 20,000 people, as I've just stated. The population of Dufferin County, 61,000? Okay. We really need 3 pools here. Now, I'm listening to everything you say, and like everybody said, boy, being in your seats is not easy. No question. But the other thing, too, is listening to what's going on with Tony Rose is that, do you build a new thing when people say, yes, but we should have 3 pools? Or if right now what I was reading is correct, I believe it was at 1.5 million or something, to get it up to speed, 1.5 million is a drop in the bucket from filling in or basically building a whole new structure, a whole new pool. I think that's the best way of serving our community. And I'm not talking about just the group of us here, but the kids, everybody of all ages. So lane swimming does not have 8 of us vying for space, and some people are different levels than others, but that we swim with the kids in lane swimming, the ones that do 50 meters, by the way, and that the lessons do go on. We need this structure and facility for everybody. As far as the parking, yeah, listen, even Alder with special events going on, you can't get in there, and I have seen people struggle against the lot. I believe that Tony Rose is something that is vital and is needed hugely in this community, and we've got some evidence that says you've got the population for more, and our population's getting crazier, never mind what you've projected, but also what I've been reading about the EV stuff in Alliston and sort of a whatever billion-dollar industry there. We're going to have people moving all over the place here, and I'd like to see that we can do it. And, you know, I'm happy to sit in the pool in my little tube and welcome them. But, you know, thanks for listening, but I just really hope that you read the letter that Melody sent.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Councillor McIntosh, want to make a comment?
Uh-oh.
No, you're good. Just sitting here thinking, and this is a question to staff. We have 2 pools in town that we're not considering, and they're probably barely used. Would the town ever consider talking to the Best Western, talking to the seniors building on Riddell, maybe working in conjunction with them, because I'm sure the Best Western pool is not that busy. So temporarily, even if we could talk to them and see if we can pay to have people use their pool.
Yeah, may I respond to that one? I've had, okay, sorry, Ms. Savage.
Thank you, Mayor Post. Thank you very much, Mayor Post. All great ideas, definitely going to take them away. I will say that at one point in my career, I worked for the city of Welland. We didn't have an indoor pool. We only had outdoor pools. So we did use the local hotels. So it is possible, something we can consider. If I may make clarification, we talk about one pool. Actually, you are the first person to mention we've had 3 pools. We have currently 3 pools here. So industry standard from our last Parks and Rec master plan is 1 in every 35,000. That may have changed. I would definitely go with the Canadian CPRA, Canadian Parks and Rec, which I believe that you had quoted. But when we refer to a pool, we refer to a tank. A tank is the vessel in which the water is stored, and it is where you run your programs. Currently, we have 2 pools. What I think we are discussing here is we want an additional facility on the other side of the community.
The other side of the community being where Tony Rose is now, because what I'm not sure what I'm hearing and what I'm reading is it's about staff suggesting closing is, are we talking about closing a facility forever and ever, amen, and a developer going in there? Or that I'm understanding from what I've heard from you is that we want to do whatever's needed to get it up and running. And we really do have 1 pool. I was told probably this time last year by one of the program developers there is that, oh, Kim, I can't do all the stuff now that's needed as far as the courses and groups that's needed. But when we have 2 pools again, we will have all the programs running. We have 2 pools for about a week and a half, maybe a few weeks. And now we're back to fighting for time, huge wait list. We're back to square one again. But sorry, just about the Best Western thing. Sorry, I didn't mean to get started like this. When I first came to this community, I did join the Best Western. I went there swimming all the time. If you're really doing lane swimming, it's not really lane swimming. I also had burnt my skin, bathing suits. It was really not well maintained. Plus, when there are occupants in the hotel, you can't get in there, especially when they've got kids and everything. So I think it's a great idea. I just wish it was a different facility perhaps that we had.
No, appreciate that.
Thank
you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Shirley Ramsey from Beat Street to talk about Tony Rose. If you could just pull the mic down, Ms. Ramsey.
Yeah, I will.
Great.
Yeah.
And then the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Okay, just have to change the glasses. Okay, Shirley Ramsey, 15 Feed Street. I have some concerns and questions regarding the mechanical failure report. of Tony Rose. I don't expect everybody or anybody to answer all these questions right here, but I am going to pose some questions in how I express my concerns. I am happy to put the questions in writing to anybody that is deemed appropriate. The February 2024 roof inspection, when that was done, staff noticed that the Dectron wasn't working. It sounded like it was accidentally discovered. How could that not be known, that the unit was not working? The addition of the refrigerant sounded like it was a repair attempt. The word attempt was actually used, and that cost $16,000. Is there someone on staff who is qualified to inspect and understand the operation and repair of something like the Dectron? So that's sort of, that emerged in my reading of the report. The 2014 Monteith Brown report on indoor facility assessment said that the number of repairs required at that time, and they recommended the repurposing of the pool. At that time, the Dectron was only 6 years old. Why would they recommend the replacing of the Dectron or the closing of the pool when the Dectron was only 6 years old at that time? Why is the filtration system undersized? The footprint of the pool system hasn't changed, and yet that is mentioned in the mechanical failure report, that the filtration system is undersized. Also that the drainage and skimmer systems have problems. Are those two last ones, the drainage and the skimmer system, are they actually working? Have the problems been diagnosed properly? So those are questions that I have, and like I say, I'll be happy to put them in print to anybody that would be able to answer them. So now I'd like to go back to the Recreation and Parks Master Plan of 2020. That was 4 years ago. I read it very carefully at the time, from cover to cover, and I had my reservations then about having just one pool. And I've done a lot of thinking since then, and I'm convinced that one pool is not the route to go. I wasn't actually going to speak tonight, but my thoughts, I feel, should be heard, and I changed my mind at the very last minute. So here I am tonight. In support of my meandering thoughts over the last 4 years, I'd like to say that the town has grown since 2020 and the master plan was released. We have the 2 phases of the First Street townhomes. We have the upcoming Hanson Street development that will be going in. We have infilling that's happening and has happened in the past, will continue in the original areas of Orangeville. All of these create demand in this part of town. Not everyone by any means either would want or be able to drive to Alder Street. So demand is increasing right here. This is supported by my observation of quite a few people being missing from Aquafit now that used to go to Tony Rose. Aquafit is a demand program. Lane Swim is also a demand program. I know the Lane Swim people are not happy. I went through all the aquatic programming and I counted 25 lane swims, shared or not shared. 10 of that 25 are shared. So I knew why people were not happy about the lane swims. I'd like to make the comment too that these are not drop-in programs. You have to register for them or you just don't get in, and you better register promptly. Another thought that was meandering around in my brain over the last several years is that the town's slogan is historic past, dynamic future. The idea is of an older town and a newer town. You can't ignore basic facilities in both areas of town. We have 2 business hubs, 2 high schools, public schools all over the place, 2 libraries, 2 sports complexes, both of which have included pools. Okay? If you don't provide the same essential services to residents in both areas, you are undermining the success of one of them. I know when I make that statement, I had pressed a hot button with my husband today on the issue of real estate value. So that is, in a nutshell, undermining the success. I'd like to remind everybody that users come from all kinds of places outside Orangeville too. So people could be coming to one pool, they could be coming to Alder, they're coming from all directions. Another thought I had over the last several years is that some decisions in the past have been made and they have been questionable, or outright mistakes have been made. For example, the loss of the old post office building, and that is now commemorated in large photos downtown. That's the memory of the old post office. Meanwhile, we maintain a very, very lovely courthouse. The filling in of the outdoor pool in the Rotary Park area. An outdoor pool in the summer is very logical. The protracted construction at Sea Line has already been mentioned because of disruption of the fish spawning season. This was not anticipated. Perhaps that should have been. The lack of the rebar installation under the pool deck at the original Alder Street pool. These are just a few things that easily come to mind. But once something is done, you can't go back, and the money has been spent. Long-term thinking is necessary. The items that I have mentioned have been foreseeable items. Then you have the unforeseeable. For example, COVID, there's the classic. If there had not been a pool open in this town during that period of time, I think a lot of people would have there would have been anarchy.
I'm going to give you a 1 minute.
Okay. The industry standard of one tank pool for 35,000 people. You really can't consider the leisure pool a tank because of its depth. Many aquatic activities aren't possible in it, such as lane swim, aquafit, competition swimming, and a significant number of swimming levels. I repeat that many people come from outside to use the pool and aren't counted in that 35,000. Last item on my brain, and one that's made a very clear impression on myself and many others. The spring petition to the town, which I spearheaded regarding the maintenance/cleaning of the bathrooms and change room facilities at Tony Rose. This was a clear illustration to users of how little attention was being paid to the pool, even though it was the only pool open at the time. If there's problems with mold now at Tony Rose, waiting longer sure isn't going to help. Repairs logically should be done as soon as possible. I cannot stress enough that mechanical things need to be regularly inspected and maintained. All taxpayers expect this. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ramsey. At this point, we're going to call a 5-minute recess, give everybody a washroom break, and we will be back at 9 o'clock. The following items have been compiled under consent agenda to facilitate a single vote for council consideration. Council may remove any item from the consent agenda for individual consideration. The recommendation is that all consent agendas items be approved. I'm going to go ahead and automatically remove Tony Rose from the consent agenda. And I will give everybody on council an opportunity to speak to it. Was there any other items that anybody wanted removed? Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to remove 13.1.1, which is asset management, and 13.1.3, which is the sign variance.
Okay, was there anybody else? We're good? Okay. All right, so we will move forward with the recommendation that, let me just read it here. The consent agenda items for the current council meeting listed under 13.1 staff reports, 13.2 correspondence, and 13.3 committee board minutes be received or approved as presented, with the exception of the items removed for individual consideration, which are 13.1.1, the asset management plan, 13.1.2, Tony Rose, and 13.1.3, the sign variance application. Can I have a motion to approve the rest, please? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Prendergast, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. We will start with the asset management plan, which is 13.1.1. Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So first off, again, the conversation tonight and where we're going as a town and the feedback that we've got from everybody, I just think it's so appropriate that it would be tonight, because then we've got this very planful piece. And I know our finance team is working on a plan for how I'll allocate resources to these things as we go along. So I think, to me, it feels like the right path. And I just wanted to acknowledge staff again. I sent a little note yesterday after I finished reading it. I thought it was an excellent document. I had to read it twice. It was one of the best documents I've read since I've sat on council. So I thank you and your teams for all the work that you did on it. The one thing I wanted to bring up, and Councillor Prendergast brought it up before, and it's always awkward because you think, do I do this during the time or do we wait until the report came? I chose to wait till the report came. And I just think it's really important to call out again, this $11 million for the library. Nobody's ever said that we're doing that. It's a plan on a page. It's not been approved. To me, candidly, as I sit here today, I don't understand it. I don't know why we would do that with a library. There'd have to be, obviously, I'm not educated. I'm not asking the question today because it's not part of it. I just don't want people leaving or going on social media saying, council said that they're going to do an $11 million project at Alder for the library. Don't say that. Don't talk about that. That is not true. That's not part of what we're doing here tonight. It's an asset management plan. And I think the key things that people should take away from that is there's a $6 million a year gap in terms of funding. And Councillor Sherwood did such a great job before. 1 million equaled 3%. So 6 million equals, oh my gosh, right? The years back, and I loved how somebody else framed it tonight, is it's essentially, it's the town of Orangeville. You don't go back and say, oh, that was 20 years ago and, you know, we weren't here. We're here now. We weren't here when these things were done. But the days of being capped in zero for a tax increase, it's so irresponsible. And why it's irresponsible is it puts us in the position that we're in now, that we have underfunded assets and we can't go back. And not only are we trying to fund what we're doing, but we've got a deficit as we're going. And it's the most frustrating piece. So I think my memo to the town of Orangeville, to the people who are watching and the social media warriors that are going to want to misuse all of the words that I'm saying, is that we have a point in our town where we have to make some very serious decisions about what we're going to be as a town moving forward and how we're going to handle these things. And, you know, I'm prepared to make them. And if that means that I'm not here 2 years from now, I couldn't care less. We're going to make the tough decisions and we're going to do what needs to be done, and try and fix this as we get through this. And so I just wanted to, again, say thank you to staff. And I thought it was the best document I've seen since I've been on council.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Did anybody else want to make a comment about asset management plan? We're all good. So the recommendation is that report CPS 2024-44, the 2024 asset management plan for non-core infrastructure assets be received, and that council approve the 2024 asset management plan for non-core infrastructure assets as presented. Can I have a motion, please? Deputy Mayor and Councillor Andrews, any last comments? Councillor Prendergast, go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify, when Deputy Mayor spoke, he said it was 6 million that we had to make up, but I think that the asset management plan pointed to a deficit of 2.7 million that we're not already covering, I guess. Or maybe was I mistaken?
There was two numbers given. Perhaps
Okay.
staff could offer clarification, but there was two. There was a
In the-
2.7 and there's a 6.
In the interest of things not being taken out of context, right? And sorry for kind of stealing your thunder with the library piece, but as the vice chair of the library board and an elementary school librarian, I really value literacy and I value early childhood literacy and the importance of libraries as community hubs. But we have a fiduciary duty to the town, and $11 million on a new library certainly isn't prudent. So I just want you to all know we're not just making numbers up here, and we're thinking about tax dollars.
Thank you, Councillor Prendergast. Any last comments? Okay, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Next, we will go to Tony Rose. I'm going to work my way around the room because I think everybody wants to start. I'll start with Councillor McIntosh, and then I'll give Councillor Sherwood an opportunity, then Councillor Stevens, then Councillor Andrews, then Councillor Prendergast, then Deputy Mayor, and I will make last comment. So Councillor McIntosh.
Perfect. It's working. Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. We start with the oldest, I guess. I don't have a lot to say about it, but I will say the lady asked earlier on, do individuals want 2 pools? My answer is absolutely yes. I want 2 pools. Is Tony Rose the right place to have a second pool? I don't know. I don't want to throw $1 million plus into it and have the same thing that happened to the other pool. It's not right. We need to do it right this time, and I think we need to wait for the staff report. Whatever it says, we need to look at it carefully and go by that. But I certainly do think we need a second pool. Absolutely. It's just where are we going to put it? Is it worth repairing this one? This is what we have to find out. So those are my thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McIntosh. Councillor Sherwood.
Thank you, Your Worship. So again, I feel the passion about the second pool. Michelle, in answer to your question, I'll go on record to say that I'm in full support of 2 pools. I don't want to go by the demographic of the population of Orangeville only. We have several patrons from all around Dufferin County. So yes, I am in full support of 2 pools. And I would actually like to have seen an outdoor pool too. So, but that's something that we have to put on the back burner for now. My concern is we start off at 1.1. We all learned a lesson when it came to the Alder pool. I think it originally came at 600,000. Then they needed another 2.5 million. Then it was 3, and then we were up to 9. So I always worry about, are we starting at 1.1 million, and then what else are we going to find, and how much more is it going to cost? And once we get started, we're not going to turn back. So I just wanted to go on record, Michelle, to say that, yes, I am in support of 2 pools, but I also am very mindful of waiting to see what the study comes back with, and hopefully we'll support that.
Thank you, Councillor Sherwood. Councillor Stevens, I'll go to you next.
Sorry, can you hear me first off?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So first off, I just want to say sorry I couldn't be there. I didn't feel very well today, but I didn't want to miss this important discussion. So regarding the Tony Rose pool, I have residents reached out to me with concerns, and I was voted to address their concerns, and I feel that I cannot support closing the Tony Rose pool. We are a growing community. I understand the need for the pool at Tony Rose, and I will not support closing the pool indefinitely. There seems to be a lot of questions regarding the maintenance. I will ask staff only one question tonight. Is there a scheduled maintenance program? And if so, why wasn't this caught before now? I hear the residents and I support them. As the chair of Orangeville Access, I hear the problems with the Alder parking lot and the long walk to the pool, especially in the winter months. Seniors, people with disabilities, and every resident should have the ability to use both facility pools. I fully support having 2 pools in Orangeville. I do not want to close the pool. Well, the pool is closed, waiting for the parts. Let's fix everything that needs to be done so that when the part is installed, everything's ready to go. I understand Councillor Sherwood's statement about the tax base, and it may raise our taxes by 3%, but I'm sure we can find the funds to upgrade Tony Rose Pool and not raise our taxes again. We found $10 million to fix the Alder pool, and our taxes didn't go up 30%. So again, not in favor of closing the pool. Thank you.
Ms. Havage, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Post. To you, Councillor Stevens. You had asked if there was regular maintenance. We do building assessments approximately every 5 years. 2009, 2014, and then over to 2020, 2021. And then recently we've had structural assessments by engineers on both Alder and Tony Rose. That information makes its way into the capital budget. That information makes its way to our preventative maintenance, which I will admit in the past has not been very strong. And we know where our weak points are, where our gaps are, and what we need to focus on. And we will continue to do that moving forward.
Thank you, Ms. Savage. Councillor Stevens, is that good?
Sorry, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Your Worship. And through you, I want to express my thanks to the members of the community that not only reached out to me over the weekend through phone, text, email, but also those in the gallery as well. You've expressed yourself eloquently, properly, professionally, and passionately. I will go on record stating that we need two pools. Absolutely need two pools. As my fellow member of council expressed his chairmanship of the Accessibility Committee, I chair the EDI Committee, which is Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. Inclusion, I underline, is where we have that opportunity for all members of our changing and growing community have access to recreational facilities, amenities, be that therapeutic, mental health. It is imperative that we wait for the report because I think it's critical that we are not spending bad or good money into something that might be bad. I think that the opportunity here is to get a wholesome response from staff to identify what direction we're going to go. The other option, of course, and I appreciate Councillor McIntosh, taking a look at some of our peripheral amenities that might exist, but they may not necessarily be ideal. They could be a temporary fix, but they're not necessarily ideal. Having lived at one of the locations for 4 months, I know what that pool is like. Having said that, this would be through you, Your Worship, to Ms. Savage. What would it cost to build an outdoor pool? And even if we were looking at something temporarily, is that something that you might be able to provide just, a quick response to?
Ms. Savage?
Through you, Mayor Post. Yes, anything is possible. We recently built a splash pad in Rebecca Hills. It was about $290,000. So an outdoor pool would be significantly more.
Right.
You have to understand that the cost per square foot to operate and build pools is usually 1.5 to 2 times the amount to build any other type of facilities. So it's a big investment up front. Something temporarily, we could look into it.
Okay, that would be one of my recommendations. The other, and not to spend too much time on this, but I go back historically in our community, and one of our former outdoor pools was in fact supported by one of our groups, Lions Club, if I'm not mistaken. Not to say that, we don't have that opportunity to work in collaboration, but, those organizations have provided a lot to our community. The Lions sports pad that we have off of Diane Drive is an example with the hockey pad there, be that for the summer and or winter. These are just options that can be considered. And again, as part of the report, I would certainly like to see and hear some of these things that will be forthcoming. But I stand very clear on what I'd like to see happen, which is a second pool. We do have a growing population, and the compression that is existing over at Alder right now is very difficult to manage, and I applaud our staff for navigating through a very difficult situation, but one that I hope that we can correct with having another pool, be that however it's decided upon through council to move ahead with. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Mayor Post, through you. I'm just trying to, okay, there we go. So I was just looking at the role of a councillor, and that is to represent public and consider the well-being and interest of the municipality while maintaining the financial integrity of the municipality. So trying to balance those two things have weighed very heavily since this agenda and report have come out. We look at short-term and long-term goals. Short-term, seniors want to use the pool. 25% of aquatic users are at Tony Rose, and I would hazard a guess that those are primarily seniors who may be interested in the future planning but need that short-term gain and health benefits of swimming, and also connection and not having to go through registration hassles and the routine of meeting up with friends and loved ones and new family members possibly. I think about children who need access to swimming. My son is in grade 3. He participated in Swim to Survive, a program through the provincial government, which, you know, they did, one of the callers remarked that there was a real deficit in skill. And this is true. I've noticed this myself, and it's not just anecdotal. Lifeguards have commented on it, and so have teachers, et cetera, et cetera. Then I think about putting money into something that might not be sustainable. $1.1 million today, then the filtration system upgrade and the drainage and skimmer system upgrade would also be possibly an additional, and I did ask Mrs. Savage, and I have the email right here, how much those would be anticipated in addition, might be approximately 700,000 for one unit and 1.5 million for the other. So now we're looking at more than $3 million to maintain this pool. But then I think about what would be the cost of a new pool and how long would that take? And since being on council for 2 years, everything takes so long and it's no one's fault, it's just bureaucracy. But the people that use the pool now and that are paying taxes now need the pool open. The reality is this will take 10 months. So Alder will need to be used for swimming in the winter months. And we do need a better plan for accessibility. It's not handy to get into Alder if you have a mobility device or problems walking or any kind of handicap, pardon me, or disability. I am really cognizant of the fact that a lot of vulnerable members of our community use Tony Rose also, and it is easier to get in and out of that facility. Also, one other thing, I do believe we need to have larger dialogues with the county. We look at the industry standard of 20,000 people. Well, we have Amaranth, East Fairfax, and Mono. They don't have pools. So those residents are using our pools. There needs to be a better long-term plan. So just in terms of where my mind is, and I have wavered back and forth, today I can't support the motion. I'd like to see us invest the 1.1 million into the unit.
Thank you, Councillor Prendergast. Deputy Mayor.
No, I won't be supporting the motion to close the pool. Yeah. Did I say it backwards?
No, I think that's how you say
I
it.
don't think, I mean that I think the pool should stay open and I support a facility assessment study that is comprehensive with Tony Rose, the library, and Alder. But just recently, if I can just add one thing, we had a report to council that there was a surplus of $3-something million from capital projects, and it was just put into the reserves. Why couldn't we just repurpose that for the pool? So I just, you know, when we have a budget that's so large, I think about the citizens of the town and what are those immediate needs balanced with future goals. And I think this might be a happy medium. And I just pray that there aren't, to have a pun, when you peel the orange back of the pool, that there aren't another $20 million in problems hiding behind the walls. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. So a few thoughts. So first of all, Ms. Hartley, I just think you're the most amazing speaker, and I'm very grateful the way you addressed us. We're just a bunch of Joes that live, bunch of people that live in the town and care about our town and wanted to try and help. And I don't think we're part of the problem. I think we're trying to solve it here. And I really appreciate the way that you addressed us. And I think that is a positive exchange between citizens and your local council, and that's the way it should work. So thank you for doing that. A couple thoughts here. I just wanted to share, Island Lake is in Mono. People have brought up Mono and Island Lake. If you really want to swim at the beach, certainly the mayor can help and I can help and council can help. We're not the decision makers. So that would be the town of Mono and the CVC, and that's where that should be addressed. It's unfortunate. I wish that was in Orangeville, but it's not. Pieces that I think are really important that people should take away here. The front page of the Citizen this week talked about the fire hall, and it was someone who I respect speaking in a way that I was very disappointed in. And John Creelman is the mayor of Mono. He's someone I think highly of. He's a friend. If that's the kind of relationship we're going to have, where you're challenging us on funding, I guess that's where we'll go. But for the pool moving forward, the municipalities that use that pool They will pay the capital costs of it. They will pay the operational costs of it. And if there isn't an agreement between the town, then the residents who use that pool will pay a disproportionate amount of the costs. And the Orangeville citizens will use the pool before any other municipality uses it. This town can no longer go alone on capital projects. We've done that. It doesn't make any sense. So you don't want to support the fire hall, you don't want to support a pending pool, then there'll be a different set of circumstances as we go forward. The other thing that people need to realize is that we've caused this ourselves. The idea of giving your friend a break and saying that they live at your house and allowing them to have a discount on the rate, those days will soon be over. There's going to be metrics put into place to track that. It's not helped any of us. It's hurt. It's hurt our tax base. So I know I have friends in Mono too, but they can pay their own rates. They won't pay the Orangeville rates. Those are the things I wanted to kind of bring forward. In terms of what I want to pools, I think it's a little bit of a loaded question. Like, there's lots of things I'd like, and I was just kind of thinking about what they'd be. Like, I'd love an art center. I'd love to change the town and bring an art center here so that bands can come and concerts can come. I think that would be amazing. There's a funding issue. I'd like to have an indoor facility for lacrosse to use. Like, it's crazy to me that we're known as the Northmen. Like, it's one of the most important sports that our town has, and they don't have a great spot to play, but there's a funding issue. I'd like an indoor soccer facility. We talked about, somebody mentioned here tonight about where they drive to. That was Fergus. I know people driving to Mississauga to play soccer. What a shame. Why can't they play it here? Why don't we have a field that they can use that's a public facility and affordable? Why don't we only have the amount of arenas that we have? I'd like to have more arenas for people to play hockey and enjoy themselves. I've had numerous conversations with senior hockey people who want to be able to skate more often and play more games and have more availability, but there's a funding issue. So, last one, I'd love our grass to be cut on a regular basis in all areas of town so that the town looks pristine, but there's a funding issue. So all of these things play. So would I like 2 pools? For sure, I'd like 2 pools. I don't have the information available to me today to be able to make that decision. I've done enough of these projects now to know it's not $1.1 million. This isn't a $1.1 million decision. I know for a fact we're going to find other things. I don't know what they are, but I don't believe the 1.1 million. So what we need to do is hesitate here tonight. We need to stop. We need to pause. This isn't about closing Tony Rose. This isn't about closing Tony Rose Pool. This is a pause. We're going to have to wait. We're going to have to get more information. We're going to have all that available to us so that we can make a decision moving forward about what we're going to do. And if that comes back and it's affordable, it's reasonable, and it's a decent plan, then I will vote in favor of having a second pool. If it's not, I'll say no, and we'll find out. So I look forward to that report from staff, and we'll see when that comes. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I want to start my comments by thanking everybody for being here today. You've all addressed some of the very same concerns that most of us sitting at the table have, including life-saving skills for kids, accessibility to lane swims for everybody else, making sure that seniors have access and that the pools are accessible. All of us, I think, are passionate about making sure that aquatics in Orangeville can continue to thrive and finding the right way to do that. But when it comes to the discussion about Tony Rose Pool, I think what is missing in the public realm today and in the correspondence that we've received and even some of the delegations that we had today is the bigger context behind this conversation. And there's been a lot of misinformation about us as council wanting to permanently close Tony Rose, and that's not what this conversation is. This isn't about closure of the entire facility. As Deputy Mayor just said, this is about a temporary closure of the pool to gather more data. And I think that's such an important piece. This needs to be a data-driven decision that includes all of the information. But this discussion also has to involve more than just the pool. It's a broader discussion about the future of Tony Rose facility and how to best serve the community moving forward with growth and demographic and usage changes that have already happened in recreation and continue to happen. This isn't a political decision. It can't be. This is a community development decision. Spending $1.1 million right now to fix this one deficiency for Tony Rose Pool, to me, is comparable to spending $5,000 on a paint job for a car that doesn't run because the transmission is fried, or spending $10,000 to replace the living room floor in your house that has a giant hole in the roof. The reality is that the Tony Rose facility has served our community extremely well for over 50 years and needs at least $10 million in investments to make it a facility that we can be proud of. I don't want the community to think that by making the decision to close Tony Rose Pool today means that we will never have another pool opened in Orangeville, because I, like everybody else here, support the idea of having 2 pools as long as data dictates that. Again, this is the opportunity for our council to make a very well-informed decision about the future of recreation in Orangeville. By saving $1.1 million investment for a time where we have all of the data and understand what our various options on how to proceed and what our next steps should look like. It's also really important to note that we do still have the revenues from the sale of the railway, and I'm confident that when we start the community consultation of how we want to spend that money, I'm sure that recreation enhancements are going to be a hot topic as part of that community consultation, and we haven't even started that conversation yet. The reality right now, though, is that taxpayers of Orangeville have been footing the bill for a majority of the recreation offerings in the County of Dufferin forever. I can't even give you a timeline because it's been forever, but specifically those capital expenditures. And it's time for us as council and us as residents to think differently about how we move forward. This moment in time with Tony Rose is our opportunity to do that. I'm prepared to move forward with the recommendation that's in the agenda, but I do have some changes that I wanted to make to it. So I'll make a recommendation. I'm hoping I can get a seconder and then we can have further discussion. My recommendation for a motion would be that report CMS 2024-11 Tony Rose Memorial Sports Center mechanical failure of the pool be received, and that council select option 2, which is the temporary closure of Tony Rose Memorial Sports Center pool while staff conduct a facility needs assessment and report back to council, and that the recreation team and the transportation team meet to discuss potential opportunities to maximize and communicate existing public transit routes between Tony Rose and Alder to ensure access for seniors and others in the area who are accustomed to pedestrian access to the Tony Rose facility, and that council authorize the mayor to continue discussions with Upper Grand District School Board, who does own a chunk of property right beside Tony Rose Pool, and to start the discussions with both YMCA and the County of Dufferin mayors to discuss partnership opportunities to enhance aquatics and other recreation offerings in the town of Orangeville and our greater region, and that the mayor report back to council in the form of council memos following these discussions. And I think that's a really important piece because we've heard it all here. The fact of the matter is that we need capital investment from the people around us who are also using our facility. Everybody is right. We aren't just a community of 31,000 in Orangeville, but right now the 31,000 people in Orangeville are the ones paying for it. So we need to change the way that we do that. And this is the moment in time where we can do that. So that would be my recommendation of a motion. I hope that I can get a seconder for the motion. Councillor Andrews, was there any last comments or questions from anybody on council? Any additional questions? We're good. Councillor Stevens, sorry, I didn't see your hand up there. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. So if your motion goes through, can you ask the staff that when they change the routes for the seniors from, the Tony Rose area over to Alder, that when they get off the bus at Alder, the bus stops is actually on Alder Street. It goes down an incline. They have to cross or over the road. It's terrible. I'll just put it that way. So that needs to be changed. And if this motion goes through, they need to be dropped off right at the front door.
Well, and that will be definitely Councillor Stevens part of the discussion. I left it pretty open in my comment was that recreation team and transportation team meet to discuss potential opportunities to maximize and communicate those public transit routes that already exist. So I don't think we're looking at adding a direct shuttle from Tony Rose to Alder Street because I think that's cost prohibitive, but I think we can do better at maximizing the public transportation offerings that we do have. And as everybody knows, I hope everybody knows, transit right now in Orangeville is fare free. So that takes away that burden of for those who don't drive and who are accustomed to the pedestrian access to ensure that there is better access. Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Mayor Post, through you. If this motion is approved or passes rather, and the facility assessment study is conducted, and I know that we like to rely on data-driven evidence, is town staff, and with all due respect, qualified to assess structural engineering of the pool? And report back to council on that.
I will turn it to Ms. Savage for that.
Thank you, Mayor Post. Councillor Prendergast, like similar to the comment early, how are staff detecting these things? We often hire engineers to come in on site. It was engineers who reviewed the Dectron and confirmed the state of the Dectron. We rely on our building assessment plans. And so through a facility needs assessment, we're going to rely on previous recommendations that have council approval at this point. We're going to look further into them. A lot of the things we're talking about today have been in print, have been approved. So we're going to bring them all together and then present the findings that, as I mentioned, have already been approved, but we will work with our engineers. Another point, we did hire Tacoma to do a structural assessment of Tony Rose and of Alder, and that was 2023, wrapping up in 2024. We will be using that data.
Councillor Prendergast, do you have follow-up to that, or are you good? Okay. Any additional questions or comments from members of council? No? Oh, Councillor Stevens. Yeah, go ahead.
How long will staff take to prepare this?
Ms. Savage? It is in the report as well. I think there's some timelines in the report, right? Ms. Savage, go ahead.
I believe so. I think we are going to report back by the end of this year, preliminary findings, but keep in mind, we will be assessing current demand, future demand, comparators, industry standards, and reviewing bigger pictures. So we may be doing it in phases. I will say that we are as eager as everyone else is.
Thank you. And I would also add, hopefully, that in the meantime, and I didn't include this in my motion, but there have been some really good programming challenges that have been addressed by delegates today. So I'm hoping that there was some takeaways for that as well. I see nodding from all the recreation staff. So hopefully we can work on also enhancing the offerings that currently exist at Alder, because we know Alder, having just opened again after a long substantial closure, has not been up to full capacity. Only now is it getting up to full capacity of programming, and hearing some of the feedback that we've heard today is vital in making sure that those move forward appropriately. Anything else from council? Seeing none, okay, I will call the vote on that. Is all in favor? And any opposed? Councillor Prendergast and Councillor Stevens opposed. So the motion carries. Thank you very much. Next, we will move on to the sign variance application for Dufferin Wildlife Supplies at 287A Broadway. Deputy Mayor, you pulled that one, so I will turn it to you to have first crack at conversation.
Sure. Thank you very much. Oh, am I okay? Okay.
You go first, then we'll go Councillor Sherwood and Councillor McIntosh.
All right. I was confused there for a moment. So I struggle with this one, everyone. And the reason I struggle, it's nothing to do with a business that wants to be vibrant and have people know the goods that they have. It truly is about this sign bylaw piece. And it's fine. We could approve this tonight. I get that the rationale and the reasoning for it as the business sits there. And I certainly don't want to penalize them in any sort of way, especially when they're trying to make a living in an honest way. The issue is why do we have this sign bylaw then if we're going to do this? It keeps coming up over and over and over again. And so I would suggest that if we do pass this, then the recommendation needs to go back to say that we need to review the sign bylaw, because it's continuing to not answer the questions that it's supposed to answer. And if we decide not, then we don't need to do that. But I'm fine to support, but then we need to review the bylaw. And if we're not supporting, then let's just move on and we don't need to do anything. But that's my take.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. At this point, I will not be recommending the approval of this sign. Specifically, you hit the nail on the head there, Deputy Mayor. Why do we have a sign bylaw if we're going to continually exempt and give permission for bigger and bigger signs? This sign is two times larger than what the bylaw states. My whole thought is it's not in front of a heritage building. I get that. But if every building along there comes and wants a sign 2 times larger than our bylaw, what is our beautiful downtown going to look like? So I will not be supporting this based on the fact that this not just exceeds by a little, but by double the sign face. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sherwood. Councillor McIntosh.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will be supporting this, and I do think we need a sign bylaw. I think we need the exceptions in there. I gave an example last meeting about the Best Western. who asked for a sign bylaw exemption, and the sign is 30 times bigger than what the bylaw calls for, but the council of the day allowed it, and rightly so. My other concern is if you drive down that part of Broadway, and I've done it a couple of times now, there is all kinds of different signs up there. Why are we stopping this sign just because he went to do it legally? You've got lit signs down there. You've got, I forget, clapperboard signs and things. They're all over the place down there. So I think before we need to look at everything. We have a sign bylaw, but maybe it's not being enforced. I don't know. But there's one place that has a Volkswagen stuck outside the house advertising. I just don't know where that falls into the current bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McIntosh, Councillor Andrews, and then Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, I am similar to Councillor McIntosh going to support this, but I also think that we have to take a look at where we stand with this bylaw. There are exceptions that do arise, and through staff recommendation, again, this is why I have repeated myself at council meetings that we trust the staff with their recommendations. We understand the process, and I have to highlight this particular business. I'm a firm supporter of our business as the chair of the Economic Development Committee. I take a look at, an article that was in one of our local newspapers here supporting this business, highlighting this business. That's what I want to hear. I want to see thriving businesses. But we have to do so under the bylaw that exists, but there are exceptions to those particular situations. So I know that there are recommendations here, options, but I am in support of this particular sign request. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to not support the recommendations tonight. I believe our term of council, over in Alder Street last year, someone came in with a larger sign and we opposed it. And I'm a rules guy, and I like to make sure everybody is treated equally and fairly. So I won't be supporting this motion tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Any additional? Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Mayor Post, through you. Tonight I will be supporting the staff recommendation. I'm going to defer to staff on this issue. I feel that with their knowledge and expertise in this regard, if they see fit and we need to review our sign bylaw in the future, if it's antiquated in some way, then perhaps that's something we will come to when that time comes, rather. But I will be supporting the recommendation today.
Thank you, Councillor Prendergast. Deputy Mayor, and then I've got a question for our clerk's team. So Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion if that's possible. Would you rather me wait until you're...
And let me just ask my question, then you can make a motion. My question was going to be for Ms. Martel. Wondering, I know that we've got a long list of bylaws that are up for review under the clerk's department. Can you let me know when the sign bylaw is up for review and maybe we can move it forward? But Ms. Martel?
2025.
So it's coming up as it is. Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. Deputy Mayor?
That would be the motion, is that we approve this sign based on the needs for the business. However, the bylaw piece, and if it's 2025, I suppose we can wait. But the issue is we're going to continue to have this problem, and I'm kind of with Councillor Stevens that if there's rules, I follow them. So it's awkward, right? Is there a possibility perhaps to move it up earlier? I know there would be choices if we did that, but it feels like it would be a minor revision versus a whole redo.
Ms. Martel?
Thank you. It would be something that I'd have to discuss with infrastructure services. Our sign bylaw is actually held within our building department. The clerk's department only does the variances and the temporary signs, so it'd have to be a discussion with them. We do have a large slate of bylaws that are actually slated for our review this year that would have to be kind of switched around. We'd have to do a report back to council because it was council direction of the order of the bylaw review, so you would have to amend that order as well. So I think we'd have to have some discussions with infrastructure services, with our building department first. We're already looking at, we wouldn't even get back to it before council to change the date until September. So I think we're already mostly through the way with a lot of our 2024 bylaw reviews. I think if we can just prioritize that to be one of the first ones in 2025, maybe a better use of our time.
Thanks, Ms. Martel. Deputy Mayor? Yeah, that's good. Okay, so the motion from Deputy Mayor then is that report 2024-06-24, sign variance application for Dufferin Wildlife Supplies at 287A Broadway be received, and that council grant a variance to sign bylaw 28-2013 as amended to permit the placement of a ground sign at 287A Broadway measuring 1.8 meters by 1.8 meters, having a sign area of 3.24 meters squared, which exceeds the maximum permitted sign area of 1.5 meters squared, and that the sign bylaw be reviewed with priority in 2025. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Andrews seconds. Any last comments or questions? No. No, we don't have a process in there. It was during question period or as a registered delegation, unfortunately. But this would allow you to, the motion that's going on the floor is to support your sign permit. Okay. Any last questions or comments? Okay, all in favor? And any opposed? Councillor Sherwood and Councillor Stevens opposed, so the motion carries. Thank you. Okay, so we will now move into notices of motion prior to meeting, which we have none. We do have one notice of motion at tonight's meeting. I will turn it to Councillor Prendergast for that. And this one, because it is time sensitive, I will be asking for a motion from council to consider the motion tonight. Okay, so Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Mayor Post. Just a bit of preamble before I read the motion. Recently, the town has become faced with a limited water supply capacity. And as such, we've been looking at efforts to mitigate this as individual citizens can do. The town started through Public Works a rain barrel program through a $50 subsidy. Really cool fact, it sold out in 15 hours. 100 rain barrels sold in 15 hours. So that is something which is very exciting. Anecdotally, in 2023, the program shut down that was opened in 2017 because they only sold 70 rain barrels in that whole time period. So there's a serious interest right now in the town for water conservation, and Sustainable Orangeville would like to support these efforts of the town through the use of our reserve funds. So I'm going to read my motion now. Whereas the town has limited water supply capacity to service future developments beyond what is currently approved or in progress towards approval, existing town wells have been in service for an average of 34 years. Several wells experienced decline in efficiency and supply capacity. Whereas on June 3rd, 2024, Council passed bylaw 2024-040, the lawn and garden watering, a bylaw to regulate the use of water for lawn and garden watering within the town of Orangeville. This bylaw regulates the frequency of which residents may water their lawns and gardens. This bylaw was passed to impact the town's overall water conservation efforts. Whereas rain barrels play a key role in water sustainability by allowing the reuse of rainwater for watering flowers, hanging baskets, and gardens. Whereas Sustainable Orangeville's mandate is to promote environmentally sustainable practices within the town of Orangeville and to reduce the town's environmental impact, including but not limited to water conservation and stewardship. Whereas Public Works' annual budget for rain barrels is $5,000. The subsidy program was available at a subsidy of $50 per barrel, providing 100 barrels. Within 15 hours of the program opening, all 100 rain barrels were spoken for. Whereas for the remainder of the term of council, staff will work with Sustainable Orangeville to develop a rain barrel program. Therefore, it is requested that council approve the use of up to $20,000 from the reserve funds of Sustainable Orangeville to subsidize another 400 rain barrels through the rainbarrel.ca initiative implemented through the Town of Orangeville Public Works Department.
Thank you, Councillor Prendergast. I'm going to first start with a motion to waive notice. Could I get a motion to waive notice? Councillor Andrews, seconded by Councillor McIntosh. All in favor to waive notice? And that is carried unanimously. Can I also get a seconder for Councillor Prendergast's motion? Councillor McIntosh. And then I will turn it to Councillor Sherwood, who had her hand up for a question.
Yes, Your Worship, through you to either Councillor Prendergast or staff. Can you tell me how much is in the reserve funds?
Councillor Prendergast.
Sustainable Orangeville has $120,000 in reserves.
Very good. You have my support.
Was there additional questions? Councillor Andrews and then Councillor Stevens.
Not a question, just a wholehearted support in this initiative for someone that actually tried to get a rain barrel, add to my inventory rain barrels. I was shut out, unfortunately. So looking forward to getting a second rain barrel at my house. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Your Worship. I too was not successful, but hopefully next time. My question is, I'm not sure who looks after the inventory or who gets them, but is it one per household? I just want to make sure that they are only going to residents of Orangeville first.
Councillor Pendergast.
That each household.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Councillor Pendergast.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Stevens. Actually, there is a limit for 2, so it was 2, but that's something we could revisit in the interest of equity and how successful the program was. And that was actually a question that I had. And you do have to have a postal code that is hooked up to the town's water meter. So people from outlying municipalities are not eligible for this program.
Thank you. Was there additional questions or comments from anybody? Oh, seeing none. I just wanted to echo my support for this as well. It was really great to see that this program moved so quickly. It was really promising to see that residents are really jumping on board with water conservation. And I think our ability to support that we can do here. And I want to thank Councillor Prendergast and Sustainable Orangeville for their willingness to utilize their reserve funds for such an important program, especially, to get it while the interest is hot, I think is really crucial. And moving forward with this now, I think it was very prudent of you to do so. So thank you for bringing it forward. Any last questions or comments from anybody? I will call the vote then. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Was there any other notices of motion at tonight's meeting? No, seeing none. Any announcements? Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Your Worship. And through you, I just wanted to remind the general public that the Affordable Housing Task Force is still seeking applications. Application deadline is Friday, July the 12th. Please drop by the town's website for more details. The application specific criteria for individuals who are applying, either experience in owning, operating, or managing affordable housing, or something that would be similar, someone that has residential housing planning and or development background, experience in affordable housing or social housing support, local development experience, real estate representation, and finally, I think those that may have had some financial background as well. So I do encourage both Councillor Pendergast and myself will be a part of this task force, look forward to it, but it is critical that we have the right people that are part of this task force applying.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. And with that, there is other opportunities for other committees as well that are posted. So everybody can have a look at those. Any additional announcements? Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship, I just wanted to remind the community of the upcoming Orangeville Rotary Rib Fest that will be held on July 19th, the 20th and the 21st. And hopefully everyone else can go and support that. Have a great feast on Rib Fest and know that these funds are going back to the community.
Thank you, Councillor Sherwood. Any additional announcements? Councillor Prendergast.
It's just a bit of a PSA. Now that school is over, as you're driving around town, please stick to the speed limits. And if you have a young one who's riding their bicycle, please enforce the use of a helmet. I often see children riding around town with no helmets. Acquired brain injuries are no joke. And not to be a mom and a teacher, but I thought I'd use this platform just to get that message out there. Please wear your helmet.
Well said, Councillor Prendergast. Any last announcements? Okay, seeing none. We're at the point of the meeting now for bylaws. The recommendation is that all bylaws for the current council meeting listed under item 17, bylaws be read 3 times and finally passed. 17.1 is a bylaw to authorize a municipal funding agreement with the Association of Municipalities of Ontario with respect to the Canada Community Building Fund. 17.2 is a bylaw to appoint James Bramley as a bylaw property standards officer weeds inspector for the town of Orangeville. 17.3 is a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the Corporation of the Town of Orangeville at its regular council meeting held today, July 8th, 2024. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Prendergast, all in favor? And that's carried unanimously. And a motion to adjourn, Councillor McIntosh, seconded by Deputy Mayor. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you for joining us tonight. Have a great evening.